So hey, what's up guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel Cosmic Harry, and today's crossover will be Harry Potter x Tensura. So in this story, Harry Potter will get abandoned from the Hogwarts and he will get raised by Rimuru Tempest as a true dragon emperor. So if you're new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe and like the video. Now without any further delay, let's get straight to the video.
Rimuru Tempest was halfway through explaining tax policy to a very bored Rigard when reality cracked open above the throne room and dropped a screaming baby onto the conference table. What the? Rimuru's slime body launched forward on pure instinct, catching the infant before it could bounce off the edge. The dimensional rift overhead made a sound like glass being chewed by something with too many teeth, flickered through colors that hurt to look at, and then sealed itself with a wet pop. Silence, every monster in the room stood frozen. Rigard had his hand halfway to his sword. Shien's Odachi was already drawn, her eyes scanning the ceiling for follow-up attacks. Benimaru had positioned himself between the anomaly point and Rimuru, without even thinking about it. And Rimuru just stood there, holding a human baby wrapped in a singed blanket, watching it scream its tiny lungs out like it had personal beef with the universe. Great Sage, Rimuru said quietly, what just happened? High analysis complete. Dimensional breach detected. Origin point. Parallel world designated. Wizarding Britain. Breach caused catastrophic magical backlash from curse-sacrifice interaction. Subject human infant. Male, approximately 15 months old. Warning, parasitic soul fragment detected attached to subject's core. The baby kept crying. Rimuru noticed blood on its forehead. No, not blood, a wound. Fresh, jagged, shaped like a lightning bolt and pulsing with something dark that made his predator instinct scream wrong, wrong, wrong. Everyone out, Rimuru said. Shien stepped forward. Lord Rimuru, we should out now. Except you, Benimaru. Stay by the door. They obeyed, because when Rimuru used that voice, even Shien knew better than to argue. The throne room emptied in seconds, leaving just the Slime Lord, his most trusted commander, and one very angry infant. Rimuru set the baby on the table, keeping one pseudopod extended to stop it from rolling off. The crying had downgraded to hiccuping sobs. Big green eyes stared up at him, wet with tears but weirdly focused for something so young. Hey, Rimuru said softly. Hey, it's okay. You're safe. The baby grabbed his pseudopod and tried to put it in its mouth. Great Sage, tell me about this soul fragment, she analyzing. Soul fragment is approximately 1/8 of an adult human soul. Fragment is parasitic in nature, attempting to anchor itself to subject's magical core. Fragment contains residual consciousness, memories, and malevolent intent. Classification. Horcrux, a dark magical artifact created through murder, designed to anchor the creator's soul to the mortal plane. Rimuru felt something cold settle in his core. Someone had murdered a person to create this thing, and then... What? Accidentally attached it to a baby. Can I remove it? Affirmative. Skill Predator can consume the soul fragment without damaging the host. However, removal will trigger a magical backlash. Recommend immediate action before fragment fully integrates with subject's core. The baby had stopped crying. It was chewing on Rimuru's pseudopod now, making little grunting sounds of satisfaction. Benimaru, Rimuru said without looking up, I need you to witness something. Don't intervene no matter what you see. Understood? Lord Rimuru. Rimuru extended a thin tendril toward the lightning bolt wound. The baby didn't flinch. If anything, it seemed curious, watching the approaching slime with those startling green eyes. The moment Rimuru made contact with the wound, the darkness inside it recoiled. A voice screamed in his mind, ancient and furious and absolutely certain of its own superiority. You dare touch me, creature. I am Lord Voldemort! I am. Rimuru activated Predator. The soul fragment fought. It thrashed and screamed and threw memories at him like weapons. A pale man with red eyes, a woman's terrified scream, green light everywhere. So much death, so much pain, a desperate hunger that had consumed everything human and left only this. And then it was gone, dissolved, absorbed into Rimuru's endless void and broken down into nothing. The baby made a sound, not a cry, more like a sigh of relief. The lightning bolt wound was still there, still visible, but the darkness that had pulsed beneath it was gone. Just a scar now, just a mark, absorption complete. Acquired memories and magical knowledge from Fragment. Fragment's creator designation Tom Marvolo Riddle, also known as Lord Voldemort. Warning: creator has additional soul anchors in parallel dimension. Creator is not fully destroyed, noted. Rimuru muttered. He'd deal with that information later. Right now. The baby was looking at him with an expression that somehow managed to be expectant, like it was waiting for him to do something. Great Sage. What's this kid's name? Ken extracting from absorbed memories. Subject designation Harry James Potter. Parents James Potter and Lily Potter, deceased. Cause of death murder by Tom Riddle approximately 3 hours ago relative to subject's timeline. Subject designated as the boy who lived. In origin dimension due to surviving killing curse. Harry James Potter, parents dead. Orphaned at 15 months old because some dark wizard decided to murder a family over a prophecy. And now here he was, dumped into another dimension entirely, being held by a slime monster in a nation of creatures that would make his birth world scream in terror. Rimuru looked at the baby, at Harry. Harry looked back at him and smiled, a big, gummy, completely trusting smile. Well, Rimuru said. Crap. Rimuru Tempest erupted from the basement archives like a golden comet the moment he sensed the dimensional disturbance. His humanoid form materialized in the throne room hallway, already talking at full volume. Rimuru! I felt it! A breach between worlds! The magical signature was extraordinary. Chaotic, layered, completely unstable! We must investigate immediately before... He stopped. Rimuru was standing in the middle of the hallway holding a human baby. Veldora's brain, vast and ancient as it was, needed a full 3 seconds to process this image. That's a baby, he said finally. Yep, you're holding it. I am aware. Veldora leaned closer, his draconic instincts warring with his otaku, influenced curiosity. The baby didn't seem afraid of him. If anything, it seemed fascinated, reaching toward his face with grabby little hands. It wants to touch the storm dragon, Veldora observed, sounding slightly offended and mostly delighted. His name is Harry. He fell through a dimensional rift about 10 minutes ago. His parents are dead. Someone stuck a piece of their evil soul in his forehead, and I have no idea what to do with him. Veldora processed this information with the careful consideration of a being who had lived for thousands of years. We should keep him, he declared. What? Obviously. Veldora's eyes were gleaming now, a child touched by prophecy, scarred by dark magic, thrown across dimensions by fate itself. This is clearly the beginning of an epic narrative. He's probably destined to become a great hero or a terrible villain. Either way, we must be involved. Veldora. This isn't a manga. Everything is a manga if you look at it correctly. The dragon reached out and let Harry grab one of his fingers. The baby immediately tried to eat it. See, he already recognizes my greatness. He's trying to absorb my power through consumption. Hayes teething. That's what he wants you to think. Rimuru sighed. This was going to be a very long day. The emergency council meeting happened 3 hours later, after Harry had been fed goat milk, slightly warmed, which Great Sage assured was safe for human infants. Cleaned, Shona had materialized a tiny bathtub from somewhere and taken over with frightening efficiency, and dressed in hastily modified doll clothes that Gobda had produced from his personal collection. Rimuru decided not to ask about that last part. So, Rigard said slowly, let me make sure I understand. This child fell through a hole in reality from another world. His parents were murdered by a dark wizard. You ate a piece of that wizard's soul out of the child's head. And now you're keeping him? That's the summary, yeah. May I ask why, Lord Rimuru? It was a fair question. The pragmatic answer was obvious. The kid was a liability. He was human, he was foreign, he was connected to threats from another dimension, and he was a baby. Babies required constant care, endless resources, and produced nothing of value for years. From a purely logical standpoint, the smart move was to find a way to send him back to his own world and let his own people deal with him. But Rimuru kept thinking about those absorbed memories. The flash of green light, a woman throwing herself in front of her child, knowing she was going to die, doing it anyway because that's what mothers did. A man fighting without a wand because he'd given his wife time to run, even though there was nowhere to run to. James and Lily Potter had died for this kid. Had died because they loved him more than they feared death. And their reward was having their son's forehead carved open, so some psychopath could use him as a soul jar. Because someone should, Rimuru said finally. Because his parents died protecting him, and the least I can do is make sure that sacrifice meant something. Because I ate the thing that was hurting him, and that makes him my responsibility now. And because... He looked down at Harry, who was currently trying to escape Shona's lap to grab Benimaru's hair. Because look at him, Rigard. He's not scared of any of you. A baby who just went through dimensional trauma, whose parents died hours ago, who woke up surrounded by monsters. And he's trying to play with everyone. He's reaching out instead of pulling away. That's not nothing. Rigard was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. If Lord Rimuru has decided, then Tempest will support his decision. But there are practical concerns, obviously. Human children have specific needs. Diet, education, social development. We have no experts in raising human young. We'll figure it out. Great Sage can analyze nutritional requirements, and humans aren't that different from other species at the basic level. Eat, sleep, learn, grow. We can manage that. There's also the matter of his origin world, Benimaru said. He'd been quiet until now, but his eyes were sharp. You said a dark wizard killed his parents. If that wizard is still alive, he is. Partially. Great Sage says he's got more of those soul anchors in his home dimension. He's not gone, just temporarily disembodied. Then he may try to reclaim the child. He can try. The temperature in the room dropped. Rimuru's voice hadn't changed. But something in the air shifted, and every monster present felt their instincts scream predator. Anyone who wants to hurt this kid, Rimuru said calmly, goes through me, goes through Tempest, goes through Veldora. And I promise you, there is nothing in that wizard's world that can survive what we would do to them. Harry, oblivious to the tension, successfully grabbed a fistful of Benimaru's hair and yanked. Benimaru, veteran warrior and Kijin general, went very still and said, Lord Rimuru, your child is assaulting me. Yeah, he does that. Just let him have the hair. He'll get bored eventually. This is not appropriate behavior for a future prince of Tempest. The words hung in the air. Benimaru looked like he wanted to take them back, but it was too late. The concept had been spoken aloud, and now everyone was thinking it. Future prince. Rimuru looked at Harry. Harry looked at Rimuru. The baby grinned and shoved Benimaru's hair into his mouth. Okay, Rimuru said slowly. Okay, let's talk about that. 3 weeks later, the announcement went out to all of Tempest. Lord Rimuru had adopted a son. The reaction was mixed, not negative. Nobody in Tempest would dare openly criticize Rimuru's decisions, and plenty of citizens were genuinely happy for their beloved leader. But there was confusion, concern, and a significant amount of, wait, what? Geld was the first to voice what many were thinking. A human child. In Tempest. Yeah, Rimuru said. They were standing in the construction district, watching teams of orcs assemble a new residential block. Harry was strapped to Rimuru's back in a carrier that Shona had designed specifically for a slime body. It looked ridiculous, but it worked. Got a problem with that? Not a problem, Lord Rimuru. A concern. Geld's massive hands continued their work, lifting beams that would take 10 humans to move. Humans have not always been kind to our people. Some may worry that your attachment to a human child signals a shift in priorities. My priorities are Tempest's people. All of them. Harry being human doesn't change that. I believe you. But belief and feeling are different things. The older orcs remember starvation. They remember humans driving us from fertile lands, hunting us for sport. A generation of peace doesn't erase generations of suffering. Rimuru was quiet for a moment. From his back, Harry made a happy gurgling sound at a passing butterfly. Then we show them, Rimuru said finally. We don't hide Harry away or pretend he's something he's not. We raise him in public, in Tempest, as part of Tempest. Let them see him grow up. Let them see him make friends, make mistakes, learn our values. Let them see that being human doesn't make him an enemy. Geld set down his beam and turned to face Rimuru directly. His scarred face was unreadable. And if he grows up to hate us, humans often fear what they don't understand. He will be different from everyone around him. Isolated. That breeds resentment. Then I'll make sure he's not isolated. I'll make sure he knows he's loved. Rimuru reached back to adjust Harry's carrier. And if I somehow fail, if he somehow grows up to hate Tempest despite everything, that'll be my failure to carry. But I have to try, Geld. I have to believe that how you raise a child matters more than what they're born as. Geld studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the massive orc knelt. The orc nation follows Lord Rimuru, he said formally. If you believe in this child, we will give him a chance to earn our belief as well. Thanks, Geld. That means a lot. Harry chose this moment to spit up on Rimuru's back. That, Rimuru said, means significantly less. The first 3 months were chaos. Not dangerous chaos. Tempest had faced existential threats that made a single baby look laughable by comparison. This was domestic chaos. Endless. Exhausting, weirdly wonderful domestic chaos. Harry didn't sleep through the night. Human babies apparently needed to eat every few hours, and Harry had decided that 3 a.m. was his favorite time to demand attention. Rimuru didn't technically need sleep, but maintaining a humanoid form took constant low-level concentration. And there was something uniquely draining about pacing the halls of his home at midnight with a crying infant. You know, Rimuru muttered during one such session, I literally defeated a demon lord. I've eaten creatures that could level cities. I've negotiated treaties with beings older than human civilization, and I cannot figure out why you're crying right now. Harry's response was to cry louder. Great sage analysis. The subject is not hungry, wet, or injured. Elevated cortisol levels suggest generalized distress. Possible causes developmental anxiety, unfamiliar environment, or desire for social contact, so he's just upset. Affirmative. Human infants frequently experience emotional disturbance without identifiable cause. Recommended response: physical comfort, verbal reassurance, patience. Rimuru sighed and shifted Harry to his shoulder, patting his back gently. Yeah, okay. We can do patience. The crying continued for another 20 minutes before tapering off into hiccups, then silence, then soft breathing. Harry had fallen asleep with his face smushed against Rimuru's neck, one tiny hand gripping the collar of Rimuru's jacket. Rimuru stood very still, not wanting to wake him. You're going to be a lot of work, he whispered. You know that, right? I have a country to run. I have diplomatic relationships to maintain. I have Veldora being Veldora, and now I have you. Harry made a small sound in his sleep. Contentment, maybe, or just baby noises. But I'm going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. I promise. The moon was bright over Tempest that night, and somewhere in the distance, wolves howled at its light. Harry slept through it all, safe in the arms of a monster who had decided, against all logic, to love him. Veldora's involvement in Harry's early life was, as expected, completely over the top. Today, the Storm Dragon announced on Harry's 6-month birthday, we begin his education. He's 6 months old, Rimuru said flatly. He can't even walk yet. Details! Irrelevant details. Veldora had somehow acquired a tiny blackboard and was already drawing diagrams that made no sense. The foundations of knowledge must be laid early. By the time he can speak, he should already understand the basics of magical theory, dimensional mechanics and Veldora, the complete works of Dragon Ball, Naruto, and at least the first arc of One Piece, which is essential for understanding. Veldora. What? Rimuru pointed at Harry, who had managed to crawl across the room and was currently attempting to eat Veldora's boot. The dragon looked down. The baby looked up. Their eyes met. He's trying to absorb my power again, Veldora said seriously. He's trying to chew on your shoes because they're shiny. That's what he wants you to think. Harry, apparently satisfied with this exchange, released the boot and raised his arms toward Veldora in the universal baby gesture of "pick me up." Veldora's face went through several expressions. Surprise, uncertainty, a flash of something that might have been fear, before settling on poorly hidden delight. He scooped Harry up with exaggerated care, holding him at arm's length like a particularly confusing artifact. "He wishes to be elevated to my level," Veldora announced. "A wise choice. Small human, from this vantage point, you will learn to see the world as a dragon sees it." Harry grabbed Veldora's nose. That is not, release me, tiny creature." Harry did not release him. If anything, he gripped tighter, making happy babbling sounds. "Rimuru! Your offspring is assaulting me!" "Yeah, he does that." Rimuru was already walking away, leaving Veldora to figure it out. "Good luck with the education stuff." "This is not what I had planned. This was supposed to be dignified." "I am the Storm Dragon." "I am stop drooling on me, Rimuru." "Ramrao." The first year passed in a blur of sleepless nights. First words, Harry's first word was Ru, which Rimuru chose to interpret as an attempt at his name, and Veldora chose to interpret as evidence of a speech impediment that needed immediate correction. First steps, taken in Shona's workshop, ending in a spectacular collision with a rack of fabric that somehow didn't traumatize anyone, and first solid foods disaster. Nobody had warned Rimuru that human babies turned simple feeding into full contact warfare. Through it all, Harry adapted. It was remarkable, really. Rimuru had been worried that a human child surrounded by monsters would be constantly afraid, constantly struggling, constantly reminded of his difference. But Harry seemed to accept his strange circumstances with the unquestioning flexibility that only very young children possessed. Goblins weren't scary, they were green, and green was a good color. Orcs weren't terrifying, they were big, and big meant good hugs. Wolves weren't threatening, they were soft, and soft meant nap time. By the time he was 2, Harry had developed favorites. Gobda was good for games, bad games, dangerous games, games that gave Rimuru stress headaches. Xian was good for food, terrible food, inedible food, but Harry somehow loved it anyway. Shona was good for comforts, soft voice, gentle hands, endless patience. Benimaru was good for watching. The Kijin trained every morning, and Harry would sit at the edge of the training ground, transfixed by the flowing movements. And Veldora was good for everything else. "Again?" Harry demanded, bouncing in Veldora's lap. "Do the lightning again!" "You want more." Veldora was grinning, small sparks dancing between his fingertips. "Very well." Witness the power of the Storm Dragon. A tiny bolt of lightning arced between his hands, no more dangerous than static electricity, but it made Harry shriek with delight. "More! Insatiable! Just like a true dragon!" "Your hunger for power is admirable." Rimuru watched from the doorway, caught between wanting to intervene. Lightning around a toddler seemed objectively bad, and admitting that it was kind of adorable, Del's Harry's face was pure joy, and Veldora looked happier than Rimuru had ever seen him. "You know," Rimuru said, "when I let you out of that seal, I didn't expect you to become a babysitter." "I am not a babysitter!" Veldora looked offended. "I am a mentor, a guide!" "I am preparing young Harry for his inevitable destiny." "What destiny?" How should I know? That's what makes it exciting. Harry had gotten bored with watching lightning and was now trying to climb onto Veldora's shoulders. The dragon let him, adjusting his position so the toddler could perch there without falling. "Uncle Dora is tall," Harry announced from his new vantage point. "Of course I am! I am the mightiest being in this dimension." As Daddy taller, Veldora's face did something complicated. Rimuru felt something warm in his chest. "Your daddy?" Veldora said carefully, is short, embarrassingly short, a slime of minimal stature. "Hey, but," the dragon continued, "he is also very powerful. Perhaps the most powerful being I have ever met besides myself. So height is not everything." Harry considered this deeply. Then he nodded, satisfied. "Daddy is strong and short." "That's accurate." "Yes. Uncle Dora is tall and loud," Veldora sputtered. Rimuru burst out laughing. "He's got you there, buddy." Harry was 3 years old when the first assassination attempt happened. Tempest had grown comfortable. Maybe too comfortable. The monster nation had established itself as a regional power. Trade was flowing smoothly with multiple human kingdoms. And the worst threat most citizens faced was deciding which restaurant to try that week. Guards still patrolled. Defenses still stood ready, but there was a softness creeping into daily life. Harry felt none of this context. Harry was 3. Harry's primary concerns were which toy to play with, whether Gobda would take him exploring, and why vegetables existed when candy was clearly superior. So when the shadow detached itself from his bedroom wall and reached for him with bladed fingers, Harry didn't understand that he was supposed to be afraid. "Hi," Harry said to the shadow. "Are you playing hide and seek?" The shadow, a lesser demon, summoned and bound by someone who knew just enough about interdimensional magic to be dangerous, paused. Its instructions were clear. Kill the human child, destabilize the slime's emotional state, create an opening for its master's larger plans. Nothing in those instructions covered casual conversation with the target. "You have pretty claws," Harry continued, apparently fascinated by the blades extending from the demon's fingers. "Can I touch them?" The demon had killed before, many times. It had never experienced this particular reaction. A small hand reached toward its bladed fingers, completely without fear. The demon lunged, and Rimuru's pseudopod caught it by the throat, squeezing hard enough to crack its manifestation. "Harry," Rimuru said, his voice perfectly calm, "go to your toy box and close your eyes. Count to 100. "But Daddy?" "No, please." Harry went. He was 3, but he knew that voice. That was Daddy's serious voice, the one that meant something bad was happening and grown-ups needed to handle it. The demon tried to speak, to threaten, to bargain. Rimuru didn't let it. "Who sent you?" Subject is a lesser demon, summoned class. Binding sigils indicate human wizard origin. No direct memories of summoner, standard practice to prevent backtracking. "Fine." Rimuru's grip tightened. "Then you're useless." He activated Predator. The demon didn't even have time to scream before it dissolved into nothing, consumed entirely, its essence broken down and analyzed, her analysis complete. Summoning rituals originated from parallel dimension designated, Wizarding Britain. Magical signature matches records from previously absorbed soul fragment. Connection to Tom Riddle's followers confirmed. They'd found Harry. Not Voldemort himself. He was still too weak, still rebuilding from his forced discorporation. But his followers. The Death Eaters, great sage supplied from absorbed memories. Fanatics who believed in blood purity, who had murdered and tortured for their master's approval, who apparently still held enough organization to coordinate an interdimensional assassination. Rimuru. Veldora's voice thundered through the house as he materialized in dragon form, eyes blazing with barely contained fury. "I sense demonic energy!" "Where is?" Handled. Rimuru pointed toward the toy box, where Harry's voice could be heard counting. "He's fine." Didn't even realize what was happening. Who dared? Wizards from Harry's homeworld. They sent a demon after him. Veldora's response was immediate and visceral. The air pressure in the room tripled. Windows cracked. Magical energy crackled around his form like a physical storm. They attacked a child under our protection. I know. This cannot stand. I know. Y must respond. Devastatingly. Permanently. Rimuru was quiet for a moment. Then he walked to the toy box and knelt beside it. Harry, you can stop counting. Come here. Harry emerged, looking confused but not afraid. He crawled into Rimuru's arms without hesitation. The shadow thing is gone, he asked. Gone forever, I promise. Was it a bad guy? Yes. Did you beat him up? I did. Harry nodded seriously. Good. Bad guys should get beat up. Then, with the emotional whiplash only children could manage. Can I have a snack? Rimuru laughed despite everything. Yeah, buddy. You can have a snack. As Shion arrived to take Harry to the kitchen, Rimuru turned back to Veldora. You're right. This can't stand. But we can't just invade another dimension. It would cause too much damage, and Harry's not ready to face that world yet. Then what do you suggest? Rimuru's eyes narrowed. We? Something they can't ignore, can't misinterpret, and can't fight against. Something that makes it absolutely clear what happens to anyone who threatens my son. He began walking toward his study, his form shifting slightly, taking on edges that weren't quite right for a slime. Great sage. I need you to analyze everything we know about dimensional travel, targeting precision, and the Death Eater's organizational structure. Kerr acknowledged. Beginning analysis. And Veldora. Start thinking about what kind of message a storm dragon can send across dimensions. Something memorable. Veldora's grin was all teeth. With pleasure. 2 days later, every active Death Eater in Britain woke up to find the same thing waiting for them. A scale. A single dragon scale. Golden and massive, sitting on their bedside tables, their desks, their dining room chairs. No matter how many wards they'd erected, how many protective spells they'd layered, how many safe houses they'd hidden in, the scale was there. And attached to each scale was a note, written in elegant script: the child is protected. This is your only warning. There will not be another. No signature, no demands. No explanation of how the scales had penetrated their defenses or who had sent them. Just promise and threat, combined into perfect simplicity. The wizarding world had no frame of reference for what they were dealing with. The scales were analyzed by the best magical researchers in Britain and found to be genuine dragon scales, but from no species anyone recognized. The magical resonance was off the charts, suggesting a creature of impossible power. And the delivery method remained completely unexplained. Rumors spread. Some said it was a message from Gringotts, the goblins finally taking a stand against pureblood supremacy. Others claimed it was the work of Dumbledore himself, using unknown magic to protect the lost Potter boy. A few whispered that it was something worse. Something from outside their understanding of the world entirely. The Death Eaters stopped looking for Harry Potter, at least for a while. Harry was 4 when Rimuru decided it was time to start explaining things. They were sitting in Rimuru's garden, a small space behind his house that Trainee had helped cultivate, filled with flowers and vegetables, and a single apple tree that Harry loved to climb. The afternoon sun was warm, the sky was clear, and Harry was covered in dirt from an enthusiastic attempt to help with weeding. Harry, Rimuru said, "Do you know where you came from? Tempest." Before that. Harry's face scrunched up in thought. He was getting better at thinking, Rimuru had noticed. The random chaos of toddlerhood was slowly organizing itself into something approaching logic. Before Tempest is, before I remember. That's right. You were very little when you came here.
Just a baby. How little?
This little. Rimuru formed a small depression in his body, roughly the size Harry had been when he'd fallen through that rift. You could fit right here? Harry giggled.
I was tiny.
You were. And before you were here, you lived somewhere else. A different world with different people. The giggling stopped. Harry looked at him with sudden seriousness. Different people like humans. Rimuru felt a spike of something in his chest. He hadn't realized Harry understood the distinction yet. Yeah, like humans, your birth parents were human, Harry, but you're my daddy. I am. Always. Rimuru reached out and pulled Harry closer, wrapping a pseudopod around his small shoulders. Being your daddy has nothing to do with being human or monster or slime. You're my son because I chose you and you chose me. Because we're family. Harry was quiet for a moment, processing. Were my human parents nice? I think so. From what I know, they loved you very much. Rimuru hesitated. How did you explain murder to a 4-year-old? They got hurt protecting you. They were very brave. Are they still hurt? They're not here anymore. They went somewhere else, somewhere far away. Harry's lower lip trembled. He didn't fully understand death. Couldn't at 4 years old. But he understood loss. He understood. Not here anymore. I'm sorry, Rimuru said softly. I wish I could have helped them. I wish you could have known them. But I can't bring them back, and I can't change what happened. All I can do is take care of you now, the best way I know how. Harry buried his face in Rimuru's body. He was crying, but quietly. Not the loud wails of infant distress, but real tears for something real. They sat like that for a long time. Finally, Harry spoke again, his voice muffled. Can I call you Daddy still? Always. Even though my human parents are gone. Harry, Rimuru tilted his son's face up. Meeting those green eyes that still sometimes made him think of memory flashes, of sacrifice and love, and a woman throwing herself in front of a curse. You can have more than one family. The people who had you first, and the people who have you now. Loving us doesn't mean forgetting them. It just means you have a lot of love to give. Harry sniffled. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Harry. More than you know. The sun was setting over Tempest by the time Harry fell asleep, exhausted from emotional exertion and also from eating too many apples off the garden tree. Rimuru carried him to bed, tucked him in, and stood in the doorway watching him breathe. Shona appeared beside him, silent as always. Is handling it better than I expected, she murmured. He's resilient, like his birth parents, from what I understand, and like his new family. Rimuru smiled tiredly. We'll see. He's got a lot more to learn. About his history, his powers, the enemies who are still out there looking for him. This is just the beginning. Whatever comes, Lord Rimuru, Tempest will face it together. Harry included. I know. That's what family does. Shona left to handle evening duties. Rimuru stayed a moment longer, watching his son sleep. Her notice. Magical energy fluctuations detected in subject Harry. Pattern suggests awakening of dormant abilities. Recommend monitoring and gradual training to ensure safe development. Thanks, great sage. We'll start when he's ready. He closed the door softly and headed for his study. There was work to do, always work to do. But tonight, just for a little while, Rimuru let himself feel something close to peace. His son was safe. His nation was strong. The enemies who had tried to hurt them had been warned away. It wouldn't last. Nothing ever did. But for now it was enough. 3,000 miles away, in a castle hidden from mundane eyes, an old man with a silver beard stared at a golden dragon scale and tried to understand what had happened to the world. He thought he knew. The tracking spells had failed. The locator artifacts had failed. Every method Albus Dumbledore had used to find Harry Potter had led nowhere. Blocked by magic so foreign it didn't even register as magic. Just blank space where a child should be. And now this. A scale from a creature that shouldn't exist, delivered to Death Eaters through defenses that should have been impenetrable. A warning that implied protection Harry Potter couldn't possibly have. Where are you, my boy? Dumbledore thought, turning the scale over in his hands. What has found you? He didn't have answers. But he would find them. He had to. The prophecy was still in motion. Voldemort would return, was already returning in some dark corner of the world, and when he did, only Harry Potter could stop him. Whatever it took, whatever barriers stood in his way, Albus Dumbledore would bring the boy who lived back to where he belonged. It was for the greater good. Chapter 2. Fangs and first words. Harry was 5 years old when he punched a goblin in the face and started a diplomatic incident. To be fair, the goblin had started it. Gobzo, a merchant's son with more attitude than sense, had spent the better part of an hour following Harry around the market district, making comments about the human pet and Rimuru's charity case, just loud enough to be heard but quiet enough to claim innocence. Harry had ignored it. He'd gotten good at ignoring things like that over the years. Most of Tempest's citizens had accepted him, but there were always a few who hadn't gotten the message. Then Gobzo made a comment about Harry's dead parents. Heard humans abandon their young when they're defective. The goblin sneered. "Was your real parents knew what they were doing, huh? Threw you away like garbage and—" Harry's fist connected with Gobzo's nose before conscious thought caught up with instinct. The goblin went down hard, green blood spraying from his nostrils. Harry stood over him, breathing hard, his knuckles already starting to bruise. "Don't," Harry said quietly, "talk about my parents." Either set. The market had gone silent. Dozens of monsters stared at the scene. The human Prince of Tempest standing over a bleeding goblin citizen. Violence crackling in the air like static electricity. Gobzo's father pushed through the crowd, took one look at the situation, and made exactly the wrong choice. "You'll pay for this, human filth!" Lord Rimuru will hear about. "Lord Rimuru," said a voice like silk over steel, "is already here." The crowd parted. Rimuru walked through, his expression unreadable. He took in the bleeding goblin, the bruised knuckles, the tension thick enough to taste. "Harry, with me, now." Harry followed without a word. He knew that tone. Behind them, Gobzo's father was already shouting about justice and compensation, and the dangers of letting savages into civilized society. Rimuru didn't look back. They walked in silence until they reached the small training ground behind their house. Rimuru stopped, turned, and looked at his son. "Tell me what happened." Harry told him. All of it. The comments, the provocation, the final insult that had broken his control. He didn't make excuses or try to justify himself. He just laid out the facts and waited for judgment. Rimuru was quiet for a long moment. "You know violence isn't how we solve problems in Tempest." "Yes, Daddy. You know that as my son. Your actions reflect on me and on our entire nation." "Yes, Daddy. You know that Gobzo is an idiot child whose opinions mean nothing and whose words have no power unless you give them power." Harry blinked. "Yes, good." Rimuru's expression shifted, softening slightly. "Now tell me the real reason you hit him." Harry's throat tightened. He said, "My birth parents threw me away, that they knew I was defective and got rid of me. And I know it's not true. I know they died protecting me. But he said it like it was a fact and everyone was listening and I just—" His voice cracked. He was 5 years old, and sometimes that meant tears came whether you wanted them or not. Rimuru knelt down, putting himself at Harry's eye level. "Hey, look at me." Harry looked. "Your parents didn't throw you away. Your parents loved you so much that they died rather than let you be hurt. That's not defective. That's the opposite of defective. That's the kind of love most people never get to experience." "Then why did I end up here?" "Because the universe is weird and unfair, and sometimes things happen that don't make sense. You fell through a hole in reality, Harry. Not because anyone wanted to get rid of you, but because magic went crazy and dropped you somewhere it shouldn't have." Rimuru reached out and ruffled Harry's hair. "And I'm glad it did." "Because I got you?" Harry sniffled. "You're not mad about the punching." "Oh, I'm furious about the punching. You're going to apologize to Gobzo. You're going to do extra chores for a month, and we're going to have a very long conversation about self-control." But I also understand why you did it. And between you and me, Rimuru's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. His dad is an even bigger jerk than he is. So maybe make the apology sincere, but not too sincere. Harry laughed despite himself. It was watery and rough, but it was real. I love you, Daddy. Love you too, troublemaker. Now come on. Let's go handle this before it turns into an actual diplomatic crisis. The apology happened. It was awkward and stilted and clearly satisfied no one, but it happened. Gobzo accepted it with poor grace. His father accepted it with worse grace. And Rimuru smoothed things over with the kind of political maneuvering that made Harry's head hurt to watch. The extra chores were brutal. A month of helping Geld's construction crews, carrying materials and cleaning sites, and doing all the grunt work that nobody else wanted to do. Harry came home every night exhausted, covered in dust, his muscles screaming. He didn't complain once. "You're handling this well," Benimaru observed one evening, watching Harry struggle to lift a beam that was clearly too heavy for him. Most children would be whining by now. Daddy said, "This is how I learn." Harry gritted his teeth and pushed harder. The beam didn't budge. "That actions have consequences and I gotta face them." He's right. But there's another lesson here. What? Benimaru reached down and lifted the beam with one hand, placing it where it needed to go. You hit Gobzo because you lost control. Your emotions overwhelmed your judgment. In a fight, that gets you killed. Harry straightened up, rubbing his aching arms. I wasn't trying to fight him.
I just reacted.
Exactly. You reacted. A warrior acts. Benimaru's red eyes were intense. The difference between reaction and action is thought. Reaction is instinct. Fast, powerful, uncontrolled. Action is decision. You see what's happening, you choose your response, you execute with purpose. How do I learn to do that? Training. Years of training. Until action becomes as fast as reaction, but never loses the thought behind it. Harry looked up at the Kijin general, one of the most dangerous fighters in Tempest. A monster who had killed more enemies than Harry could count. He didn't seem scary right now. He seemed like a teacher. Will you train me? Benimaru was quiet for a moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. When your punishment is complete. And only if Lord Rimuru agrees. He'll agree. Harry's certainty surprised even himself. He wants me to be strong. Not just strong like muscles, strong like being able to protect people. And who told you that? Nobody. I see how everyone here is. You, Shion, Daddy, Uncle Veldora. You're all really powerful, but you don't use it to hurt people who don't deserve it. You use it to keep Tempest safe. Harry's small hands clenched into fists. I want to be like that. I want to be strong enough that nobody can hurt the people I love. Benimaru studied him for a long moment. Then something that might have been a smile crossed his face. We'll see. Now get back to work. You still have 3 more beams to move. Harry groaned but obeyed. His arms were going to fall off, he was sure of it. But somewhere inside, a small flame had been lit. A goal, a purpose, a reason to push through the pain. He was going to get strong enough to protect everyone, no matter what it took. The training started on Harry's 6th birthday. Rimuru had agreed, reluctantly, with a lot of conditions about safety and pacing, and if I see one bruise that looks wrong, we're done. But he'd agreed because he understood something that Harry was only beginning to grasp. The wizarding world hadn't forgotten about him. Sooner or later, they would come looking, and Harry needed to be ready. Benimaru's approach to training was simple: do everything wrong until you do it right. Again, Harry picked himself up off the ground for the 15th time that morning. His practice sword, wooden, weighted, designed for a child's hands, felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I can't. Again, he swung. Benimaru deflected without seeming to move. Your stance is wrong. Your grip is wrong. Your timing is wrong. Again. Harry got up. He swung. He fell. Again. And again. And again. and again, until his arms wouldn't respond and his legs gave out, and he lay in the dirt staring at the sky, gasping for air. Benimaru stood over him, expression unchanged. Tomorrow, same time. He walked away. Harry lay there for a long time, too exhausted to move. His whole body ached. His pride ached worse. He'd thought he was ready for this. He'd thought training would be hard but manageable, that his determination would carry him through. He'd been an idiot. "First day's always the worst," said a voice. Harry turned his head. Gobta was sitting on the training ground fence, eating an apple. "How long were you watching?" "Long enough. Benimaru really doesn't hold back." "Ha! I fell down 15 times. Rookie numbers." Gobta took another bite. "When I started training under him, I fell down 47 times before lunch. Then I threw up. Then I fell down some more. That's not encouraging. Wasn't meant to be." Gobta hopped off the fence and walked over, offering Harry a hand up. "It's meant to be honest. Training with Benimaru sucks. It sucks for a long time. And then one day it sucks slightly less, and then slightly less than that. And eventually you realize you're actually getting good." Harry took the hand, pulling himself to his feet with a groan. "How long did that take you?" "Couple years. And I'm still not great, but I'm better than I was, and that's what counts. Years." "What? You thought you'd be a master swordsman by next week." Gobta laughed. "Hate to break it to you, kid, but getting strong takes time. There's no shortcuts, no tricks, no special secrets. Just practice, pain, and more practice." Harry looked down at his wooden sword, still lying in the dirt where he'd dropped it. "Worth it." Gobta's expression shifted, becoming something more serious than Harry had ever seen on the usually goofy goblin. "Ask me that after your first real fight. After someone's trying to kill you, and you've got half a second to react or die. If your body moves before your brain catches up, if your sword's in the right position without you thinking about it, if you survive something you shouldn't have, then yeah, worth it." He slapped Harry on the shoulder and started walking away. "Same time tomorrow, right? I'll bring snacks. Benimaru never lets us eat during training, but after. You're gonna need the calories." Harry watched him go. Then, slowly, he bent down and picked up his sword. Tomorrow, same time, he'd be there. 6 months of training later, Harry's magic woke up. Not the wizarding magic he'd been born with, that had been quietly present since infancy, occasionally making things float when he was upset or lighting up when he was scared. This was different. This was Tempest magic, magicule, based energy responding to the way he'd been trained to use his body. It happened during sparring practice. Benimaru had been pushing him harder than usual, forcing him to react faster than his muscles could technically manage. Harry's sword came up to block a strike that should have been impossible to block, and his blade caught fire. Not real fire. Magical fire. Burning blue, white and cold, wrapping around the wooden practice sword without scorching it. The force of Benimaru's strike dissipated against the flames like water hitting stone. Both of them froze. "Well," Benimaru said slowly, "that's new." Harry stared at his sword. The fire was already fading, but he could feel something still burning inside him. A spark that hadn't been there before, a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with exertion. What did I do? Manifested magic through combat instinct. Rare, even for monsters. Almost unheard of for humans. Benimaru lowered his sword, studying Harry with new interest. "Your body was pushed past its limits, and your magic compensated. Filled the gap between what you could do and what you needed to do. Can I do it again?" "Try." Harry focused. He remembered the feeling. Desperation, determination, the absolute need to not fail this time, and reached for that spark in his chest. Nothing happened. "It doesn't work when you think about it," Benimaru said. "Combat magic, true combat magic, only responds to genuine need. You can't fake it or force it. You can only create the conditions where it becomes necessary." "So how do I train it?" "By training everything else. Speed, strength, technique, instinct. The magic will fill whatever gaps remain, but only if you've pushed yourself far enough to create those gaps. Benimaru's eyes gleamed. This changes our approach. We need to consult Lord Rimuru, and possibly Veldora. The mention of Veldora made Harry perk up. His uncle had been busy lately. Something about researching dimensional resonance patterns that Harry didn't understand. They hadn't had a proper training session in weeks. Uncle Veldora knows about this stuff. Veldora knows about everything, according to Veldora. But in this case, he might actually be useful. Your magic signature is strange. Not quite human, not quite monster, not quite anything I've seen before. It might take a being of his age and experience to understand what you're becoming. What he was becoming. Harry turned that phrase over in his mind. He'd always known he was different. Human in a monster nation, raised by a slime and a dragon. But he'd thought of it as a limitation. Something he had to work around, not something that could become a strength. Maybe he'd been thinking about it wrong. Veldora's analysis took 3 hours and involved a lot of dramatic posing. Fascinating. The storm dragon circled Harry, magical sensors extending from his hands to probe the boy's energy field. Your magical integration is unprecedented. The human magical core has merged with ambient monster energy, creating a hybrid system that shouldn't be possible. Is that good or bad?
Yes!
That's not an answer.
It's the only answer that's accurate.
Veldora pulled up a flowing display of Harry's magical structure. Lines and nodes and swirling patterns made no sense to Harry but clearly meant something to the dragon. Look here, where your core should be. Human wizards have a centralized magical reservoir that draws on ambient energy. Monsters have distributed magical networks that generate power internally. You have both. So I can do human magic and monster magic. In theory. In practice, the two systems are fighting for dominance. Your combat manifestation earlier was your monster network activating in crisis conditions, temporarily overriding your wizard core. But the wizard core isn't gone, it's just suppressed. Rimuru, who had been watching quietly from the corner, leaned forward. What happens if both systems activate at once? Unknown. It could result in amplified power as the systems synergize, or catastrophic feedback as they interfere with each other, or complete magical burnout destroying his ability to use either, or maybe don't list all the horrible possibilities in front of the 6-year-old.
He should know the risks! Knowledge is power! Harry,
for his part, wasn't scared. He was curious. Can we figure out how to make them work together? Instead of fighting. Veldora stopped mid-rant. His eyes focused on Harry with sudden intensity. You want to deliberately attempt something that has never been done in recorded history, with no guarantee of success and significant risk of permanent damage.
Yes.
The dragon's face split into a massive grin.
I knew I liked this child. Yes, we will experiment. We will push boundaries.
We will discover what human wizards and monster kind of both failed to achieve. Rimuru, your son is worthy of the Tempest name. Please don't encourage his reckless streak.
Recklessness is just bravery without a plan.
We will make a plan, eventually. After some experiments, Rimuru sighed heavily. Harry grinned. This was going to be interesting. The experiments began the next week. Veldora's approach to magical research was, like everything else about him, dramatic and slightly unhinged. He built testing chambers, designed measurement tools, and created elaborate theoretical frameworks that he explained to Harry in detailed lectures that Harry only half understood. The basic idea was simple: find ways to activate both magical systems simultaneously without them interfering with each other. The execution was considerably more complicated. Focus on your wizard core first, Veldora instructed. They were in a reinforced training room, surrounded by sensors and shielding. Feel for the warmth in your chest, the original magic you were born with. Harry closed his eyes. He'd been feeling his magic more and more since that first combat manifestation, learning to recognize the different sensations. The wizard magic was like sunlight, warm, bright, wanting to expand outward. The monster magic was like a heartbeat, steady, powerful. Got it? Good. Now, without releasing it, reach for your monster network. The energy in your limbs, your muscles, your reflexes. That was harder. The wizard magic wanted all his attention, flaring brighter whenever he tried to split his focus. But Harry had been training his concentration for months, learning to hold multiple thoughts at once during combat. He applied the same principle here. Sunlight in his chest, heartbeat in his limbs, both active, both waiting. Excellent? Now, slowly, carefully. Try to. Harry pushed both systems at once. The explosion knocked Veldora through the reinforced wall. Harry found himself on his back, staring at a ceiling that was now significantly more damaged than it had been a moment ago. His entire body tingled, like he'd been struck by lightning without the pain. That, Veldora's voice called from the next room, was not what I said to do. You said try.
I said slowly and carefully try. Those are important modifiers.
Harry sat up, checking himself for injuries. Nothing seemed broken. In fact, he felt good. Better than good. Like he'd just woken up from the best sleep of his life and immediately run a marathon without getting tired. I think it worked. Veldora crashed back through the wall, his clothes singed but his expression excited.
The readings are extraordinary!
He shoved a device in Harry's face, showing graphs and numbers that meant nothing to the boy. Your power output tripled for a fraction of a second. Both systems fired simultaneously without interference. The feedback was purely external. Your body absorbed the synchronization perfectly. So I can do it again? You can try, but perhaps with more control this time. I only have so many walls. Harry laughed. Then he stood up, shook out his limbs, and reached for that feeling again. Sunlight, heartbeat, together. This time he didn't push, he let them flow. The air around him shimmered. Blue, white flames, the same color as his combat magic, danced across his skin without burning. But within the flames, sparks of gold flickered, wizard fire mixing with monster energy. It lasted 3 seconds before collapsing. Harry fell to his knees, gasping. Duration is the challenge, Veldora observed, making notes. The synchronization is unstable. It requires constant attention to maintain. Your mind can't sustain the split focus for long. How do I fix that? Practice. The same way you learn to walk, to talk, to swing a sword. You do it badly over and over until you do it slightly less badly. Eventually, the actions become unconscious. Your body remembers what your mind can't hold. Harry pushed himself back up. His muscles were shaking. His vision was slightly blurry, but that spark in his chest was still there. Still waiting. Again? Veldora grinned. Now you're thinking like a dragon. Harry was 7 when the second assassination attempt happened. This one was smarter than the first. No demons. No magical creatures. Just a human wizard, apparating directly into Harry's bedroom in the middle of the night, wand raised and killing curse on his lips. He didn't get the chance to finish. Harry woke to the crack of displaced air and moved before his eyes were fully open. His hand closed around the knife he kept under his pillow. Benimaru's idea, and one Rimuru had reluctantly agreed to. And his body launched off the bed in a direction his attacker wasn't expecting. The wizard's killing curse hit empty mattress. Harry hit the wizard. 7 years old, barely 60 pounds, armed with a knife designed for a child's hand. Against a fully trained adult wizard. It should have been a slaughter. Instead, Harry's blade found the wizard's wand arm before he could redirect for a second shot. Blood sprayed. The wand dropped. Harry kept moving, using the momentum of his strike to carry himself around behind his attacker, knife coming up to the man's throat. "Don't move," Harry said. His voice was calm. His hands were steady. His heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might crack his ribs, but none of that showed on the outside. The wizard froze. "Impossible," he whispered. "You're just a child. I'm Harry Tempest." The blade pressed tighter. A thin line of blood appeared. "And you're in my house." The door exploded inward. Rimuru flowed through, his form already weaponized, pseudopods extended like blades. Behind him came Shia and Odachi, drawn and murderous. They stopped. Harry was standing behind a bleeding, terrified wizard, knife to throat.
Hey,
"Daddy?" Harry said. "Someone broke into my room." The interrogation happened in Tempest's secure holding facility, with Rimuru leading the questioning and Sui providing the kind of pressure that made strong men weep. The wizard, a Death Eater named Avery, one of Voldemort's inner circle before his first defeat, broke within the hour. "Dumbledore found you," he gasped, blood dripping from cuts Sui had inflicted with surgical precision. "Finally traced the magical signature. Took years, but he knows the general location now. This world, this nation. He's planning something, gathering information, trying to find a way to reach you without causing international incidents. And you decided to get here first. The Dark Lord is returning. Pieces of himself, scattered across Britain, pulling back together. He needs the Potter boy, something about the prophecy, about the connection between them. If Dumbledore gets to him first..." Avery shuddered. "Better to kill the child than let either side use him." Rimuru was quiet for a long moment. "So you broke into my home, tried to murder my son in his sleep, all because you're afraid of what he might become."
he's a weapon?
"You don't understand the prophecy." "I understand enough." Rimuru's voice was cold. "Great sage. This man knows the location of Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes." "Affirmative. Extracting information now." Avery screamed. It wasn't a sound that belonged to a human throat, more like something being torn out of him, memories and secrets stripped away by force. When it was over, he slumped in his chains, barely conscious. Extraction complete. Locations of 5 soul anchors identified: a locket in a seaside cave, a cup in a high-security vault, a diadem in a hidden room at Hogwarts School, a snake companion of the primary soul fragment, and the primary soul fragment itself currently possessing a host in Albania. Can we destroy them from here? Negative. Soul anchors require physical destruction with specific methods. However, dimensional coordinates can now be calculated for precision targeting if desired. Rimuru turned to Sui. "Keep him alive. He might have more useful information." "Yes, Lord Rimuru." Walking out of the interrogation room, Rimuru found Harry waiting in the hallway, escorted by Shian and looking far too calm for a child who had just survived an assassination attempt. "Harry, how much did you hear?" "An oaf." Harry's green eyes were hard. "They're going to keep coming, aren't they? Until the bad wizard is really dead? Probably. Then we need to kill him for real." The statement was simple, matter of fact. Delivered without hesitation. Rimuru felt something twist in his chest, pride and fear and grief all tangled together. "That's not your job." "But, Harry," Rimuru knelt down, putting himself at eye level with his son. "You did something incredible tonight. You reacted perfectly, defended yourself, took down a trained adult wizard without any help. I am so proud of you." Harry's hard expression flickered, uncertainty creeping in. "But you're 7 years old," Rimuru continued. "You're a child. And no matter how strong you get, no matter how much you train, your job is not to carry this burden alone. That's what family is for. That's what Tempest is for. We face threats together. But he's coming for me specifically. Then we'll be ready. All of us." Rimuru pulled Harry into a hug. "You don't have to become a weapon, Harry. You don't have to become what they're afraid of. You just have to become yourself and trust that we'll handle the rest." Harry stood stiff for a moment. Then, slowly, he relaxed into the embrace. "I was scared," he whispered. "When I woke up and he was there, I was really scared. I know, but I didn't freeze. I just moved." That's training. That's all those hours with Benimaru, all those sessions with Veldora. Your body knew what to do even when your mind was terrified. Is that what it's like for you? When you fight? Rimuru was quiet for a moment, thinking about the countless battles he'd faced since coming to this world. The fear, the doubt, the moments where everything seemed hopeless. Sometimes I'm scared too. The difference is that I know being scared doesn't mean being helpless. You can be afraid and still act, still fight, still protect the people you love. Harry pulled back, looking up at his father with those green eyes that sometimes seemed much older than 7. I want to protect people. Not just because I'm scared, but because it's the right thing to do. Rimuru smiled. That's exactly who I wanted you to become. The next 2 years were intense. Word had spread throughout Tempest about the human prince who had single-handedly subdued an adult wizard. Opinions were mixed. Some saw it as proof that Harry belonged, that he had earned his place through strength and courage. Others saw it as evidence that his presence was drawing danger to their nation, that he was a liability wrapped in a child's body. Rimuru addressed both perspectives in a public statement. Harry Tempest is my son. That is not changing, not now, not ever. Any threat that comes for him comes for all of Tempest, and will be dealt with accordingly. Anyone who has a problem with that can bring it to me personally. Nobody brought it to him personally. Meanwhile, Harry threw himself into training with renewed intensity. Benimaru increased the difficulty, adding weapons beyond swords, combat scenarios beyond one-on-one, tactical thinking alongside physical ability. Veldora continued his magical experiments, pushing Harry to extend his synchronization duration from seconds to minutes to eventually sustained combat use. And Rimuru began teaching Harry politics. Why do I need to know this? Harry groaned, staring at a diagram of Tempest's governmental structure. I'm not going to be a bureaucrat. No, but you might need to understand bureaucrats. How nations work, how power flows, how decisions get made, this is all part of being strong. Fighting is being strong. Fighting is one kind of strength. The smallest kind, actually. Rimuru tapped the diagram. Real strength is building something that doesn't need fighting to survive. Real strength is making people's lives better without anyone having to die. That sounds harder than fighting. Much harder. That's why most people stick to fighting. Harry studied the diagram with new eyes. Treaties and trade agreements and territorial negotiations. All of it suddenly seemed less boring and more important. Is this what you do all day, when you're not training me or dealing with problems? Pretty much. The exciting stuff, battles, dramatic confrontations, heroic rescues, that's maybe 5% of my job. The rest is paperwork, meetings, and convincing people to cooperate when they'd rather compete. Do you like it? Rimuru considered the question. I like what it accomplishes. I like seeing Tempest grow, seeing people who used to be enemies become neighbors, seeing children grow up without knowing war. The work itself can be tedious, but the results are worth it. Harry was quiet for a moment. Then he pointed at a section of the diagram. Explain this part again, the bit about trade councils. Rimuru smiled and started explaining. Harry was 9 when he made his first real friend outside the Tempest command structure. Her name was Kira, and she was a wolfkin whose family had migrated to Tempest from the Eastern Empire 3 years earlier. She was Harry's age, had silver fur that she was constantly complaining about maintaining, and absolutely zero tolerance for anyone who treated her differently because of her background. They met during a training session when Kira's father, a former soldier, asked Benimaru for permission to let his daughter observe. Harry had been practicing sword forms, and Kira had been watching with an increasingly critical expression. Your footwork's wrong, she said finally. Harry stumbled mid-form. What? Your footwork. You're overextending on the third transition, which leaves your left side open. A real opponent would exploit that. I've been training for 3 years, and your footwork is still wrong. Kira hopped off the fence and walked onto the training ground, grabbing a practice sword from the rack. Here, I'll show you, she attacked. Harry barely got his guard up in time. Kira moved like water, smooth, fast, efficient, and her blade found exactly the opening she'd described. If they'd been using real weapons, Harry would have a hole in his side. See, Kira stepped back, not even breathing hard. Third transition. Too much forward momentum, not enough lateral stability. Harry stared at her. Who trained you? My dad. He was a special forces operative before we left the Empire. Used to say if you can't walk right, you can't fight right? She tilted her head, silver ears twitching. You're Harry, right? The human prince? Just Harry, just Kira. She grinned, showing sharp teeth. Want me to show you how to fix the footwork? They trained together for the rest of the afternoon. Kira was relentless, catching every small error Harry made and drilling corrections until they stuck. By the end, Harry was exhausted, humiliated, and genuinely impressed. Same time tomorrow? He asked, trying not to sound too eager. If Benimaru lets me. I'm not technically supposed to be here. I snuck in because the regular training grounds are boring. I'll talk to him. If you're this good, he'll probably want to train you too. Kira's ears perked up. Really? Really? She punched him in the shoulder. Thanks, Harry. You're all right for a human. Thanks. You're all right for someone who just embarrassed me in front of my teacher. They both laughed. It was the easiest sound Harry had made in months. Kira became a regular presence in Harry's life after that. Benimaru, predictably, was thrilled to have another talented student. He adjusted the training schedule to accommodate both of them, introducing paired exercises and competitive drills that pushed them to improve faster than they would have alone. But more than that, Kira became someone Harry could talk to without the weight of politics or expectations. Must be weird, she said one evening, lying in the grass behind Harry's house and watching the stars. Being the only human here, I don't really think about it anymore. Tempest is home. Yeah, but still. Don't you ever wonder what it would be like, being somewhere with other humans, looking like everyone else, not having to explain yourself all the time? Harry turned that over in his mind. Sometimes. But I think I'd miss this more than I'd like that. This, Tempest. My family, you. He glanced at her. Where else would I get someone to critique my footwork? Kira threw a clump of grass at him. I'm serious. So am I. Harry sat up, hugging his knees. My birth world isn't somewhere I want to go. There are people there who want me dead or want to use me as a weapon. Even the good guys have plans for me that I never agreed to. How do you know that? Daddy told me. He's been teaching me about the situation. The dark wizard who killed my birth parents, the prophecy that supposedly connects us, the old wizard who thinks he knows what's best for everyone. Harry's voice turned bitter. They don't see me as a person. They see me as a chess piece. Kira was quiet for a moment. What if you could change that? What do you mean? Like, what if you went back someday, when you're strong enough, when you're ready, and just refused to play their game, showed them that you're not what they expected? And what am I then? Kira grinned, her teeth flashing in the starlight. Harry Tempest, Prince of Monsters. Best student Benimaru's ever had. Don't tell him I said that. And the only person in this nation who can keep up with me. Pretty sure you keep up with me. Details. She lay back down, looking up at the sky. I'm just saying, you get to decide who you are, Harry. Not some prophecy, not some wizard, not anyone else. Just you. Harry lay back down next to her, letting her words sink in. Just him. It was a terrifying thought, and a liberating one. A month later, Kira's family was targeted. It happened quietly, without warning. One day Kira didn't show up for training. Harry went looking for her and found their home surrounded by Tempest guards. What's going on? Harry pushed through to find Sui directing operations. Where's Kira? Safe. Temporarily. Sui's voice was flat. Her father was attacked last night. Poison, designed to kill slowly, painfully, while extracting information. Is he okay? Will be. Shona is treating him now. But the attack came from outside Tempest. Someone with resources and knowledge of our security protocols. Harry's blood went cold. Death Eaters. Unknown. The poison was magical, but not from the wizarding world. At least not the British variant. This could be connected to you, or it could be related to Kira's father's past. He made enemies during his time in the Eastern Empire. Where is she? Sui hesitated. She's being held in protective custody until we determine the threat level. Let me see her. That's not. Let me see her. Harry's voice cracked with something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite fear. She's my friend, my only friend my age. If someone is trying to hurt her family because of me, I need to know. And if it's not because of me, I need to help. Sui studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. This way. Kira was in one of the secure guest rooms in Rimuru's palace, curled up on a bed with her arms wrapped around her knees. Her silver fur was matted with something that might have been tears, and her usually sharp eyes were dull with shock. Harry? Her voice was rough. They said you might come. Of course I came. He sat on the edge of the bed, close but not touching. I'm sorry. About your dad. He's going to be okay. That's what they said. Shuna's healing is strong. But you're not okay. Kira laughed bitterly. No, I'm not. She finally looked at him, and her expression was raw in a way Harry had never seen. We came here to be safe. We left everything behind. Our home, our friends, my dad's career. Because the Empire was getting too dangerous. We thought Tempest would be different. It is different. Is it? Someone still found us. Someone still hurt my family. Her hands clenched. What's the point of being safe if nowhere is actually safe? Harry didn't have a good answer. He was 9 years old, and the question was bigger than anything he knew how to address. So he just sat there, quietly, while his friend fell apart. Eventually, Kira's breathing steadied. She uncurled slightly, leaning against the headboard. Sorry, she muttered. Didn't mean to dump all that on you. That's what friends are for, is it? I don't actually know. Never really had friends before you. Me neither. We can figure it out together. They sat in silence for a while. Then Kira spoke again. If this is because of you, the attack, I don't blame you, you know that, right? You should. If someone hurt your family to get to me, then they're the ones who made that choice. Not you. Kira's voice hardened. I'm not going to be scared of my own friend, because some monster out there decided to use him as an excuse. That's exactly what they want. What do you want? To get stronger. Her eyes met his, and there was fire in them now. Strong enough that nobody can ever hurt my family again. Strong enough to stand beside you, whatever comes. Harry reached out and took her hand. It was the first time he'd touched her like this, deliberately, and her fur was softer than he'd expected. Then we'll get stronger together. Deal. Kira squeezed back. Deal. The investigation revealed that the attack was not connected to Harry. Kira's father had enemies from his time in the Eastern Empire's military. Specifically, a covert operations unit he'd defected from. They'd tracked him to Tempest, hired local assets, and made their move. Rimuru's response was decisive. He sent a formal protest to the Eastern Empire, demanded extradition of the conspirators, and quietly had Sui dismantle the local network that had facilitated the attack. Within a month, the threat was neutralized. But the damage was done in other ways. Harry watched Kira change over the following months. She'd always been driven, always been competitive, but now there was an edge to her that hadn't been there before. She trained harder, pushed herself further, accepted injuries that would have had her stopping for rest in the past. You're going to hurt yourself, Harry said after a particularly brutal session. Good. Pain means progress. Pain means pain. Progress comes from recovery too. That sounds like something Benimaru would say. It is something Benimaru says. All the time. You're just not listening. Kira's ears flattened. Since when do you tell me what to do? Since you started acting like you want to die in training. That's not. She stopped. Her hands were shaking. I just need to be better. Faster. Stronger. If I'd been there when they attacked my dad, you would have been poisoned too. Or killed. And your dad would have to live with that for the rest of his life. Harry stepped closer. I know what it's like, Kira. To feel like you should have done more. Like if you'd just been stronger, something bad wouldn't have happened. But destroying yourself isn't the answer. Then what is? I don't know. But we'll figure it out together, remember. That was the deal. Kira stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the tension drained out of her. You're annoyingly reasonable. You know that. Learned from the best. Your dad is not the best. He turned into a puddle yesterday because someone complimented his hair. Okay. But aside from that, they both laughed, and something that had been tight between them loosened. Same time tomorrow? Harry asked. Same time tomorrow. Kira punched his shoulder, gently this time. And Harry, thanks for not giving up on me. Never. When Harry was 10, Rimuru called a family meeting. Family meeting. In this case meant Rimuru, Harry, Veldora, Shona, Benimaru, and Shion gathered in the private dining room of Rimuru's house. It was an unusual assembly, and Harry's instincts, trained by years of learning to read situations, told him something significant was about to happen. So, Rimuru said, settling into his chair, we need to talk about the future. Whose future? Veldora asked, already suspecting the answer. Harry's. Rimuru looked at his son, specifically. The fact that Dumbledore has figured out exactly where you are and is planning to make contact. The room went very still. When? Benimaru asked. According to our intelligence, within the next year. He's been building support in the British magical government, preparing arguments for why the kidnapped boy, who lived, needs to be rescued from his monster captors. Kidnapped. Shion's grip tightened on her teacup, cracking the porcelain. You saved him! We know that. They don't, or don't want to know it. To Dumbledore, Harry is a child soldier he needs for his war against Voldemort. Everything else is secondary. Harry had been quiet, processing. Now he spoke up. What's his plan? Once he finds me, that's what we need to discuss. Rimuru pulled out a sheaf of papers. Intelligence reports. Translated documents, analysis from Great Sage. His most likely approach is diplomatic. He'll request permission to enter Tempest. Claim he's here on behalf of Harry's true family and try to convince you to return with him voluntarily. And if I say no, then it gets complicated. Dumbledore is the most powerful wizard in that world, and he has the backing of their government. If he decides Harry Potter needs to come home, he has significant resources to make that happen, legally, politically, and if necessary, forcefully. Then we crush him. Veldora's voice was flat. He threatens my nephew. He dies. Simple. It's not that simple. Rimuru shook his head. Dumbledore is also the only person who can effectively oppose Voldemort. If we kill him, we potentially doom an entire world to darkness. And whatever else he is, he genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. So we're just supposed to let him take Harry? No. We're supposed to prepare Harry for the confrontation, so he can make his own choice from a position of strength. Everyone looked at Harry. He was 10 years old, but in that moment, he didn't feel like a child. He felt the weight of his history, his training, his two families, the one that had died for him and the one that had raised him. Tell me everything, Harry said. About Dumbledore, about the prophecy, about what they expect me to be. Then I'll decide what I actually want. Rimuru smiled, proud and sad and hopeful all at once. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. The next year was preparation. Harry learned everything available about his birth world, the wizarding world structure, its prejudices, its heroes and villains. The prophecy that marked him as Voldemort's destined enemy, Dumbledore's history, his battles, his triumphs, his mistakes, his manipulations. He learned about his parents, too, James Potter's bravery and arrogance, Lily Potter's brilliance and compassion, their friends, their enemies, their choices. The night they died, reconstructed from absorbed memories and fragmentary intelligence. It hurt to learn these things. To understand what he'd lost, what could have been, what was taken from him. But Harry absorbed it all, let it become part of him, refused to look away from any of it. "You're handling this remarkably well," Shona observed one afternoon, finding Harry in the library surrounded by documents. "I don't feel like I'm handling it well. I feel like I'm drowning in information." "Those aren't mutually exclusive." Shona sat across from him. "Handling things well doesn't mean feeling good. It means continuing to function despite the pain." Harry looked up at her. "Is that what you did? When everything changed for you?" Shona was quiet for a moment. She rarely talked about her past. The destruction of her village, the death of her original lord, the chaos before Rimuru found them. "I did what needed to be done," she said finally. "I protected my brother. I maintained my dignity. I waited for a better opportunity. And when Rimuru appeared, I seized that opportunity with both hands. You didn't know it would work out?" "No. But I knew that giving up would guarantee failure. So I kept going, even when everything hurt, even when I couldn't see a way forward." She reached out and placed her hand over Harry's. "You have advantages I never had, Harry. A family that loves you, a nation that supports you, years of preparation for this moment. Whatever Dumbledore brings, you don't face it alone." Harry turned his hand over, squeezing hers. "Thank you, Aunt Shuna." Her expression softened, warm, affectionate, proud, always. The contact came 3 weeks before Harry's 11th birthday. A wizard appeared at Tempest's border alone, carrying a white flag and a letter sealed with purple wax. He was politely detained by the guards, his wand confiscated, his letter delivered to Rimuru. "It's from Dumbledore," Rimuru confirmed, scanning the contents. "He's requesting a diplomatic meeting to discuss the welfare and future of Harry Potter." Very formal, very proper. Very carefully worded to sound reasonable. "What's the catch?" Harry asked. "Multiple catches. He assumes Harry wants to know about his heritage. He assumes we've been keeping information from you. He assumes that if he just explains things properly, you'll naturally want to return to the wizarding world." Rimuru's voice was dry. "He has no idea how thoroughly you've been prepared." "Good. Let's keep it that way." Rimuru looked at his son. "You want to meet him?" "No. But I need to." Harry's jaw set. "He's going to keep coming otherwise. Keep pushing, keep maneuvering, keep trying to get to me. The only way to stop it is to face him directly and make my position clear. It won't be that simple. Dumbledore is brilliant, charismatic, and genuinely believes he's right. He'll try to manipulate you, not with malice, but with conviction. Then I'll have to be more convincing." Rimuru studied his son for a long moment. The boy who had fallen through a rift 11 years ago was gone, replaced by this young man with hard eyes and steady hands, and a spine forged from years of training and love and carefully nurtured independence. "Okay," Rimuru said finally. "We'll set up the meeting. But on our terms, in our territory, with our conditions. Visible and invisible, the entire time." "Of course." "And Harry?" "Yeah." Rimuru smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "Make him understand who you are." The meeting was held in Tempest's Grand Council chamber. A deliberate choice, designed to impress and intimidate. Magical architecture rose in sweeping arcs, imbued with power that any wizard would feel pressing against their senses. The chairs were scaled for monsters, making any human visitor feel small. And the security was absolute. Benimaru standing visible guard, Sui invisible in the shadows. Veldora waiting in a connected chamber ready to intervene at a moment's notice. Albus Dumbledore entered with his head held high, blue eyes twinkling, looking completely unbothered by his surroundings. He was exactly as Harry had expected from his research, tall, ancient, draped in colorful robes, radiating an aura of grandfatherly wisdom that felt almost aggressive in its warmth. His wand had been confiscated at the border, but he moved like someone who didn't need a weapon to be dangerous. "Lord Rimuru," Dumbledore said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I know this situation must seem... Save it." Everyone turned to Harry, who had stepped forward from his position beside Rimuru's chair. "We know why you're here, Headmaster Dumbledore. You want to take me back to Britain, put me in Hogwarts, and prepare me to fight Voldemort. You've spent 11 years tracking me down because of a prophecy that said I was destined to defeat him. You think you're rescuing me from monsters who kidnapped an innocent child." Dumbledore's twinkle dimmed slightly. "You are remarkably well informed. I'm Harry Tempest. My father is the ruler of this nation, my uncle is the storm dragon Veldora, and I've been training for this conversation since I was old enough to understand what you wanted from me." Harry stepped closer, until he was within arm's reach of the ancient wizard. "So let me be clear, I'm not going back. Not now." "Not your boy." "I'm not your boy." Harry's voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "I'm not the wizarding world's boy, or the prophecy's boy, or anyone's weapon. I'm my own person, and I get to decide what I do with my life." Dumbledore was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You're right, of course. I apologize, force of habit. I've spent so many years thinking of you as the child who vanished. I failed to account for who you might have become." His expression shifted, becoming more serious. "But Harry, the prophecy isn't something either of us can ignore. Voldemort will return, is already returning, and when he does, he will come for you. Not because of anything you've done, but because of what you represent. I know. I've known for years. Then you understand why it's vital that you receive proper training in what? Wizarding magic." Harry raised his hand, and blue, white flames danced across his fingers, the hybrid fire that Veldora still couldn't fully explain. Wizard energy and monster magicules merged into something neither world had seen. "I've been trained by a dragon, Headmaster, by Kidjian generals and ogre warriors. I've developed abilities that don't exist in your world. What exactly would Hogwarts teach me that I don't already have?" Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly. "That's remarkable. I've never seen magic quite like that. Because it's mine, not Britain's, not Tempest's, mine." Harry let the flames die. "I'm not refusing to face Voldemort, Headmaster. If he comes for me, I'll destroy him. But I'll do it on my terms, with my family, using my power, not yours." The chamber was silent. Dumbledore stared at Harry, and for the first time, his grandfatherly mask cracked, showing something older beneath, something tired and calculating and desperately hopeful. "You're truly determined. Completely. And nothing I say will change your mind. Nothing." Dumbledore closed his eyes. When he opened them, some of the twinkle had returned, but it was sadder now. "Then I suppose I have no choice but to accept your decision. For now." He turned to Rimuru. "Lord Rimuru, I apologize for any offense my presence may have caused. I truly did believe I was acting in Harry's best interest." "I believe you," Rimuru said. "That's what makes you dangerous." Dumbledore nodded, acknowledging the point. "May I make one request before I go?" "You may ask." "If, when Voldemort moves against Harry, will you inform me? Not so that I can intervene without permission, but so that I can prepare Britain for what's coming. Whatever else happens, there are innocent people in my world who will suffer if we're caught off guard." Harry looked at Rimuru. Rimuru looked back. "We'll consider it," Harry said finally. "If you give us a way to contact you that doesn't involve international incidents." Dumbledore reached into his robes. Moving slowly, making no threatening gestures, and produced a small silver device. A communication mirror. It can reach me directly, regardless of dimensional barriers. Consider it a gesture of good faith. Harry took the device, examining it carefully. And you'll really leave, without trying anything else. I'm old Harry, not stupid. I can see that forcing this would be counterproductive. And Dumbledore paused, something shifting in his expression. Perhaps I have been wrong about more than I realized. You're clearly not the helpless child I was trying to save. You're something else entirely. I'm Harry Tempest. Yes. I'm beginning to understand what that means. Dumbledore turned and walked toward the chamber exit. At the threshold, he paused and looked back. Your mother would be proud of you, Harry. She was much the same, unwilling to be defined by anyone's expectations but her own. A small smile. Perhaps, in time, we can try this again, as equals rather than as adversaries. Perhaps. The ancient wizard left, escorted by guards, and the chamber erupted into chaos as everyone started talking at once. But Harry barely heard any of it. He was thinking about what Dumbledore had said, about his mother, about being proud. It was strange. He'd just faced down the most powerful wizard in his birth world, rejected everything that man had spent a decade preparing for, and all he could feel was a strange, quiet grief. He hadn't known Lily Potter, would never know her. But for just a moment, hearing those words, he'd felt something like connection. Maybe that was what the prophecy had stolen from him. Not just his parents' lives, but the chance to be their son in any real way. Rimuru appeared beside him, one pseudopod resting on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Harry took a deep breath.
Yeah, I think I am.
You did great. Better than great. I know. Harry looked up at his father, his real father, the one who had chosen him. But this isn't over, is it? No. Dumbledore will be back, or Voldemort will make his move, or something else will happen. It's never really over. Then I'll keep getting stronger. Keep preparing. Rimuru smiled. That's my son. That night, Harry found Kyra waiting outside his house. Heard you scared off an ancient wizard today. He left voluntarily. Eventually. Ooh. Kyra's silver fur gleamed in the moonlight. Want to talk about it? Harry thought about it. The conversation with Dumbledore, the weight of his birth world's expectations, the strange grief for parents he'd never known, maybe later. Right now I just want to sit and not think for a while. Works for me. They sat on the grass together, watching the stars, not talking. It was comfortable, familiar, exactly what Harry needed. Hey, Harry! Yeah, whatever happens next, with the wizard stuff, with Voldemort, I've got your back. You know that, right? Harry smiled. I know. Same goes for you. Good. Kyra bumped her shoulder against his. Now stop being dramatic and tell me about your footwork today. Benimaru said you finally fixed that third transition. He told you that? He told everyone. Apparently it only took you 4 years. Oh! Shut up. They bickered comfortably while the moon rose over Tempest, and somewhere in the distance, a dragon's laughter echoed through the night. Chapter 40 Blood Calls to Blood. The British delegation arrived on a Tuesday morning, and Harry knew immediately that something was wrong. Not with the delegation itself. That was exactly what they'd expected. 12 wizards in formal robes, led by a pompous ministry official named Cornelius Fudge, who had apparently survived the political upheaval through sheer cowardice and strategic fence sitting. They came bearing gifts, diplomatic credentials, and barely concealed contempt for the monster nation they'd been forced to negotiate with. No. The wrongness was something else. A prickling at the edge of Harry's senses, a dissonance in the magical signatures of the group. Someone in that delegation wasn't what they appeared to be. You feel it too, Kyra murmured, standing beside him in the receiving hall. Yeah, 3rd row, maybe 4th, someone's hiding. Want me to tell Sui? He already knows. Look, a shadow flickered at the edge of the hall. Sui's signal that he was aware and watching. Whatever was hidden in the delegation, Tempest's intelligence network had it covered. Harry relaxed slightly and focused on the performance ahead. "Minister Fudge," Rimuru said, his voice carrying the warm authority he used for diplomatic functions. "Welcome to Tempest. I trust your journey was comfortable." "Quite adequate. Quite adequate." Fudge's smile was too wide, his eyes too nervous. "Though I must say the dimensional transit was rather unsettling. Most irregular form of travel. We find it efficient. Shall we proceed to the conference room? I believe we have much to discuss." The negotiations that followed were exactly as tedious as Harry had expected. Fudge blustered about concerns and protocols and proper channels. Rimuru responded with patient logic and thinly veiled warnings. The dance of diplomacy, endless and exhausting. Harry paid attention with half his mind, while the other half tracked the wrongness he'd sensed earlier. It was coming from a young witch near the back of the delegation. Blonde, pretty, with a vacant expression that didn't match the sharp intelligence in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. Polygus, Harry realized. Or something similar. She's not who she appears to be. He caught Benamaru's eye and made a subtle gesture. The Kijin general nodded almost imperceptibly. When the delegation broke for lunch, Harry excused himself and slipped out through a side door. Kira followed without being asked. "The blonde one?" she said as soon as they were clear. "Yeah. Her magical signature is layered. There's something underneath the surface appearance. Assassin, maybe. Or spy. Or something else entirely." Harry turned down a corridor that would loop around to the kitchens. "I'm going to intercept her. You watch from the shadows, step in if things go wrong. And if she's actually dangerous, then I'll handle it." Kira's ears flattened. "I hate when you say that. I know. But you trust me, right?" Unfortunately, they split up. Harry positioned himself in an alcove near the refreshment area, waiting. The delegation would pass this way on their route to the dining hall. Sure enough, the blonde witch appeared a few minutes later. Alone, having separated from the group with some excuse about finding a bathroom. Her vacant expression was gone now, replaced by sharp-eyed alertness as she scanned her surroundings. She spotted Harry immediately. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the witch's hand twitched toward her wand. "I wouldn't," Harry said calmly. "You're surrounded by people who would kill you before you finished the incantation. I'm a member of a diplomatic delegation. Attacking me would be an act of war. Attacking you, yes. Subduing a spy who infiltrated said delegation under false pretenses. That's just good security." Harry stepped out of the alcove, letting her see him clearly. "So let's skip the part where you pretend to be someone you're not. Who are you, and what do you want?" The witch studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. A real smile, nothing like the vacant mask she'd been wearing. "You're good. Better than I expected." She reached up and touched her face, and the blonde features melted away, revealing someone entirely different. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, eyes that held a familiar glint of mischief. "I'm Daphne Greengrass," she said. "And I'm here to help you kill Voldemort." They talked in a secure room, with Sui visibly present and Kira watching from the corner. Daphne didn't seem bothered by the scrutiny. If anything, she seemed impressed by the security measures. "The Greengrass family has been neutral for generations," she explained. "We don't support the Dark Lord, but we don't actively oppose him either. It's how we've survived. So why break that neutrality now?" "Because neutrality isn't working anymore." Daphne's expression hardened. "Voldemort isn't interested in political games. He wants absolute control. Of Britain, of magic, of everything. The families that try to stay out of his way are being forced to choose, join or die. And your family chose a third option. My family doesn't know I'm here." She met Harry's eyes directly. "My father would have a heart attack if he knew." But I've watched Voldemort's followers operate since I was a child. I've seen what they do to people who aren't pure enough, who don't bow low enough, who dare to question anything. I'm done watching. That's admirable. But it doesn't explain why you came to me specifically. Because you're the only one who can actually win. Daphne leaned forward. Dumbledore is powerful, but he's old and his strategies are outdated. The Ministry is corrupt and incompetent. The resistance movements are too fragmented to mount effective opposition. But you? She gestured at the room around them. You have a nation behind you. Real military power. And you're the prophecy's chosen weapon, whether you like it or not. I'm not a weapon. No. You're something more dangerous. Her eyes gleamed. You're a symbol, the boy who lived, raised by monsters, walking proof that the old ways aren't the only ways. Half of Voldemort's ideology crumbles if you succeed. That's why he's terrified of you. Harry considered this. How do you know he's terrified? Because I've seen the orders he's giving. Kill Harry Potter at any cost. Capture him if possible, but death is acceptable. No resources spared, no methods forbidden. Daphne's voice dropped. He's mobilizing everything, Mr. Tempest. Death Eaters, dark creatures, allies from abroad. He's not waiting for you to come to him. The room went very still. When? Sui asked. I don't know exactly. Weeks, maybe months. But the preparations are accelerating. Daphne pulled a small envelope from her robes. This is everything I could gather. Troop movements, alliance negotiations, ritual components he's been acquiring. It's not complete, but it's more than anyone else has. Harry took the envelope but didn't open it. Why should we trust you? This could be disinformation, a trap. Anything, it could be. But ask yourself, what would Voldemort gain by sending me here with false intelligence? He's not subtle enough for that kind of operation. He prefers direct action, overwhelming force. Daphne's smile was sharp. Besides, you already know I'm telling the truth. Your shadow friend has been reading my surface thoughts since I walked in, and he hasn't signaled any deception. Harry glanced at Sui, who gave a minimal nod. Impressive, Daphne continued. Most people don't even notice when a ninja is in their head. You've trained your people well. We've trained to survive. There's a difference. I's there. She stood smoothing her robes. I should get back before my absence is noticed. The delegation leaves tomorrow. I need to maintain my cover until then. And after that? After that, I disappear. I have resources, safe houses, ways to move without being tracked. I'll continue gathering intelligence and pass it along through secure channels. She extended her hand. We have the same enemy, Mr. Tempest. I'm not asking you to trust me completely. I wouldn't in your position. But I am asking you to consider that maybe, just maybe, we can help each other. Harry looked at her hand for a long moment. Then he reached out and shook it. We'll verify your information. If it checks out, we'll be in touch. That's all I ask. Daphne turned to leave, then paused at the door. One more thing. There's a spy in your organization. Someone who's been feeding information back to Britain. Not to Voldemort directly, but to Ministry elements who share it with him. I don't know who it is, but I know it exists. She left before Harry could respond. The spy hunt took 3 weeks. Sui's network turned inward, examining every connection between Tempest and the outside world. They looked for patterns, anomalies, anything that suggested information was flowing where it shouldn't. They found it in the last place anyone expected. A merchant, Rimuru said, staring at the evidence spread across the war table. One of our trusted trade partners. Operating for 6 years without suspicion. He was good, Sui admitted. Used legitimate business communications as cover, encoded information in shipping manifests, never made contact with anyone suspicious on our soil. If the Greengrass girl hadn't tipped us off, we might never have noticed. What do we know about his handlers? British Ministry, as she said. Specifically, a faction within the Department of Magical Law Enforcement that's been secretly cooperating with Death Eater elements. Sui's voice was cold. They've been selling information to Voldemort while maintaining plausible deniability. Have we picked him up? Not yet. I wanted to consult before taking action. There might be value in letting him continue while feeding false information. Rimuru considered this, then shook his head. No, we can't afford to play those games, not with Voldemort accelerating his plans. Bring him in, extract everything he knows, and shut down the leak. We'll deal with the Ministry faction separately. Understood. Harry had been silent throughout the briefing, processing. Now he spoke up. The information Daphne provided, it verified, mostly. Some of the details were slightly off, but that's expected with intelligence gathered secondhand. The core claims about Voldemort's preparations appear accurate. Rimuru looked at his son. She seems genuine, Harry. Scared, desperate, and genuine. I know. That's what worries me. Why? Because desperate people take risks, and risks get people killed. Harry stood, moving to the window. She's put herself in an incredibly dangerous position. If Voldemort finds out she's working against him, her whole family dies. Slowly. You're concerned about her. I'm concerned about what happens if we rely on her and she gets caught. Or if she decides the risk isn't worth it and turns back to neutrality. Or if her family finds out and forces her to stop. Harry turned back to face Rimuru. We need our own intelligence in Britain. People we control, resources we can trust completely. That's harder than it sounds. We don't have natural networks there. Then we build them. Harry's jaw set. I've been thinking about this since we came back from our visit. The wizarding world is full of people who hate Voldemort but don't have anywhere to turn. Muggleborns being persecuted, half-bloods living in fear, even purebloods who disagree with the ideology. We could reach out to them, offer support, create an infrastructure that doesn't depend on any single person. An insurgency network. A resistance network. Same tactics, different framing. Rimuru studied his son for a long moment. The strategic thinking, the long-term planning, the willingness to operate in moral gray areas. These were new developments, honed by years of training and political education. You've been planning this for a while, since the diplomatic visit. The pieces just weren't in place until now. And Daphne Greengrass, first recruit, if she's willing. She's already proven she can operate covertly, and she has access to circles we couldn't penetrate otherwise. Harry's expression was calculating. We verify her thoroughly, give her small tasks to prove her loyalty, and gradually expand her role as trust develops. Standard asset development. You sound like Sui. He's a good teacher. Rimuru laughed despite the serious topic. All right, we'll pursue your network idea, with Sui supervising the operation. But Harry, remember that these are people, not just assets. The moment we start treating them as expendable resources, we become what we're fighting against. I know, Dad. I know. The network grew slowly over the following months. Daphne proved herself reliable, delivering accurate intelligence and recruiting carefully vetted contacts from her social circles. Through her, they reached disaffected Slytherins, neutral families looking for protection, and even a few ministry employees who were disgusted by their superiors' collaboration with Death Eaters. Harry corresponded with each recruit personally using enchanted journals that allowed secure communication across dimensional barriers. He learned their names, their families, their fears and hopes. He made sure they knew they weren't just tools. They were partners in something larger than any individual. You're good at this, Kira observed one evening, watching Harry compose messages. The people's stuff, I mean, making them feel valued. It's not manipulation. I actually do value them. I know. That's what makes it work. She curled up on the couch beside him, her silver tail draped over his lap. But it's also wearing you down. I can see it. Harry paused mid-sentence. What do you mean? You're carrying all of them, Harry. Every recruit, every agent. Every life that depends on the network you're building. That's a lot of weight.
Someone has to carry it.
Does it have to be you? Alone, Harry set down his pen and really looked at her. Kira had grown over the past year. Taller, stronger, more confident. Her training with Benimaru had refined her natural talent into something genuinely dangerous. But she'd also grown in ways that had nothing to do with combat. She saw things. Understood things. Cut through his defenses like they weren't even there. It's not just about the network, she said quietly. It's about everything. The war, the prophecy, your family's expectations, Tempest's future. You've been taking on more and more responsibility, and you don't share any of it. I share things with you. Do you? When's the last time you told me something you were actually worried about? Not strategy concerns or threat assessments, real worry, real fear. Harry opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He couldn't remember. That's what I thought. Kira's ears flattened. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, Harry. You're handling this better than anyone could expect. But you're still only 15. You shouldn't have to carry the fate of 2 worlds on your shoulders. 16 next month. Still a kid. Still my friend who deserves to not be the weight, bearing pillar of everything all the time. Harry felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. He reached out and took her hand. Something he'd started doing more often, a small intimacy that grounded him when everything else felt overwhelming. I'm scared, he admitted. All the time. Scared that I'll make a mistake and people will die. Scared that Voldemort will get here before we're ready. Scared that I'm not strong enough, not smart enough, not anything enough. That's normal, is it? Because I look at Dad and Veldora and Benimaru, and they seem so certain, so confident. Like they know exactly what to do no matter what happens. That's because they've been doing this for a lot longer than you. And also, Kira squeezed his hand. They're scared too, they just hide it better. How do you know? Because I watch people, Harry. It's what I do. Her eyes were soft. Your dad gets this look sometimes, when he's watching you train or go into danger. Like his heart is breaking, and he's trying to hold it together. Veldora hides behind his bluster, but he's terrified of losing the family he's found. Benimaru pushes himself past exhaustion because he's afraid of failing the people who depend on him. You see all that? I see everything. It's annoying, actually. Makes it really hard to enjoy parties. Harry laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised him. You're kind of amazing. You know that, obviously. Someone has to balance out your dramatic, brooding energy. I don't brood. You absolutely brood. Right now. There's dramatic lighting and everything. Harry looked around. The evening sun was indeed slanting through the window in a way that could generously be called atmospheric. That's just the sunset. The sunset that conveniently appears whenever you're being emotionally vulnerable. Suspicious timing. If you ask me, I hate you. No, you don't. No, he agreed. I don't. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands still linked. The sunset faded, the room grew dim. Hey, Harry? Yeah. When this is all over, the war, the prophecy, all of it, what do you want to do? Harry thought about it. Really thought. Not just the automatic responses about protecting people and fulfilling obligations. I want to build something, he said finally. Something that lasts. Tempest is Dad's creation, but I want to contribute to it. Make it stronger, help it grow. Create connections between worlds that last beyond any single conflict. That sounds like a lot of work. Probably. But it also sounds good. Like it would matter. What about personal stuff? Family, relationships, all that. Harry's thumb traced absent circles on the back of her hand. I haven't really let myself think about that. Seemed premature. With everything else going on, maybe you should start. Something in her voice made him look at her. Really look. Seeing not just his best friend, but a young woman with silver fur and sharp eyes, and a presence that had become as essential to him as breathing. "Don't." She pulled her hand back, but gently. "Don't say anything right now. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that it's okay to think about those things. That surviving the war isn't the only thing worth planning for. But you? I'll be here, Harry. Whatever you decide, whenever you're ready to decide it. I'm not going anywhere." She stood up, stretching. "Now finish your letters. I'm going to find food. Want anything? Whatever you're having." She left, and Harry sat alone in the darkening room, his heart beating faster than it should. Partners, he thought. That's what they'd said years ago. Partners who'd face everything together. Maybe someday it could be something more. But not yet. Not with the war coming, not with so many lives depending on him. He couldn't afford that kind of distraction. He picked up his pen and went back to work. The attack came 3 days before Harry's 16th birthday. Not the full assault they'd been preparing for. That was still months away, according to intelligence. This was something smaller, more targeted, more personal. Harry woke to the sound of screaming. He was out of bed and moving before full consciousness caught up, grabbing his sword, extending his senses to identify the threat. The screaming was coming from outside, from the residential district where Kira's family lived. No. He was running before he finished thinking, bare feet slapping against stone, magic building around him like a storm. The streets were chaos, civilians fleeing, guards mobilizing, the distant crack of curses being thrown. Harry rounded a corner and found Kira. She was standing in the middle of the street, surrounded by 5 Death Eaters in full regalia. Her father lay behind her, bleeding from wounds that looked serious. Her mother was slumped against a wall, unconscious or worse. Kara herself was fighting. Her blade moved in patterns Benimaru had drilled into them both, but she was outmatched. 5 trained killers against one 15-year-old, no matter how talented. As Harry watched, a curse slipped past her guard and opened a gash across her shoulder. She stumbled. One of the Death Eaters raised his wand for the killing blow. Harry felt something snap inside him. Not the careful control he'd been building for years, the balance between emotion and effectiveness. Something deeper. Something primal. Blue, white fire exploded from his body as he moved, and then he was among the Death Eaters like a force of nature. The first one died before he knew Harry was there, his head separated from his body in a single clean cut. The second managed to raise a shield that Harry shattered with raw magical force, driving his blade through the wizard's chest. The third tried to apparate, but Harry's anti-disapparition field was already in place. He grabbed the man's arm and tore it off, then finished him with a strike to the throat. The fourth and fifth turned to face him together, coordinating their attacks. Cruciatus from the left, Killing Curse from the right. Harry dodged both, his body moving in patterns that transcended his training. His monster magic and wizard magic weren't just synchronized anymore. They were unified, a single system operating at peak efficiency. He killed the fourth with a blast of hybrid fire that burned through shield charms like paper. The fifth lasted 2 seconds longer, enough time to see Harry's face, calm, focused, utterly merciless, before a blade of concentrated magic took his head. Silence fell. Harry stood among the corpses, breathing hard, magic still crackling around him. Slowly the fire died. The extra senses faded. He was just himself again, a teenager covered in blood that wasn't his own. Harry. Kara's voice was small. He turned to face her. She was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Fear. Awe. Something else entirely. Are you hurt? He asked. My shoulder. It's not bad. Harry, your parents. We need to get them to healers. He was already moving toward her father, checking the wounds. Serious but survivable if they acted quickly.
Can you walk? Yes, but.
Then help me carry him. Your mother too. We'll sort everything else out later. Kira hesitated for just a moment. Then she nodded and moved to help. They carried her parents to the medical district in silence. Harry kept his senses extended, watching for additional threats, but the attack seemed to have been limited to this one strike team. Targeted assassination, not widespread assault. They'd come for Kira's family specifically. Because of him, the aftermath was a blur. Kira's parents survived, her father with extensive scarring, her mother with magical trauma that would take months to heal fully. The attack was traced back to intelligence leaked before the spy was discovered. One last piece of information the merchant had sold. The Death Eaters had known exactly where to strike, exactly when Harry would be separated from the residential district by his morning routines. They'd been trying to hurt him through the people he cared about. Harry sat in the medical district waiting room, staring at nothing. He'd cleaned the blood off hours ago, but he could still feel it on his hands. 5 kills, Veldora said, appearing beside him with uncharacteristic quietness. In approximately 8 seconds, against trained adult wizards who had every advantage of positioning and preparation. They were threatening Kira. Yes. I noticed your emotional response during the engagement. Quite remarkable. Your power output increased approximately threefold when you perceived her in danger. I wasn't thinking about power output. I was thinking about keeping her alive. Precisely my point. Veldora settled into the chair beside him. Your synchronization breakthrough occurred in a moment of genuine emotional crisis. Not the manufactured pressure of training, but real stakes with real consequences. So what? I can only access my full power when people I love are dying. Perhaps. Or perhaps you simply needed the final catalyst to unlock what was already there. Veldora's voice was unusually gentle. You've been holding back, Harry. Not consciously, your training wouldn't allow that. But somewhere deep inside, you've been afraid of what you might become if you fully embraced your power.
And now you know?
The dragon's eyes met his. You're not a monster, nephew. You're something far more dangerous. A person willing to become monstrous to protect what he loves. There's a difference, is there? Oh yes, monsters act from instinct. You act from choice. Every kill you made tonight was a decision, not a reflex. You chose to be terrifying because the situation required it. Veldora's hand landed on his shoulder. That's not loss of control. That's ultimate control. The power to decide exactly how much of yourself to unleash. Harry sat with that for a long moment. I don't feel in control. I feel like I'm barely holding together. That's normal. You're processing trauma while simultaneously dealing with the strategic implications of tonight's attack. Give yourself time. We don't have time. Voldemort is accelerating his plans, and now he knows exactly how to hurt me. Then we adjust our plans accordingly. Veldora stood, pulling Harry to his feet. Come. Your father wants to speak with you, and the tactical meeting starts in an hour. You can fall apart after we've secured our defenses. Harry laughed despite everything, a rough, broken sound. That's your idea of comfort. I'm a dragon. We're not known for our nurturing instincts. But Veldora's grip on his shoulder was firm, supportive. You did well tonight, Harry. Never doubt that. Whatever else happens, you saved Kira and her family. That matters. Thanks, Uncle. Anytime, nephew. Now let's go, we have a war to plan. The tactical meeting lasted until dawn. Rimuru had called in everyone. The full command structure. Intelligence assets, even representatives from allied nations who could be reached on short notice. The attack on Kira's family wasn't just an assault on Harry's friends. It was a message. Voldemort was declaring his willingness to strike at Tempest's heart. Our defensive posture needs to change, Benimaru argued. Passive protection isn't enough. We need active countermeasures, strike teams ready to deploy the moment we detect incursion. Agreed, but we also need to address the intelligence gap. Sui countered. They knew our patrol schedules, our response times, the exact location of Harry's close associates. That level of detail suggests ongoing surveillance we haven't detected. The merchant spy explained some of it, but not all. There has to be another source. Harry listened to the back and forth, his mind working on a different track. They weren't trying to kill me, he said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. Tonight's attack. 5 Death Eaters, elite squad. Clearly prepared for serious opposition. If they wanted me dead, they would have come for me directly. Instead, they went after Kira's family while I was on the other side of the district. Attempting to draw you out, Rimuru suggested. Maybe. Or testing something. Harry stood, moving to the tactical display. Veldora said my power spiked when I engaged them. 3-fold increase over my normal output. What if that was the point? What if they wanted to see what I could do under extreme emotional pressure? A reconnaissance mission disguised as an assassination attempt. Sui said slowly. That would explain the relatively small team. Expendable assets sent to gather information. And now Voldemort knows exactly how dangerous I can be when people I care about are threatened. The room was silent as the implications sank in. He's learning you, Benimaru said finally. Studying your capabilities, your weaknesses, your emotional triggers. Building a profile to exploit. Which means the next attack will be specifically designed to counter whatever he learned tonight. Harry's jaw tightened. We've been thinking of this as a military conflict, but it's not. Not primarily. It's personal. He's fighting me specifically, and he's going to keep probing until he finds an angle that works. Then we need to make sure he doesn't find one, Rimuru said. Increase protection on anyone Harry is close to. Randomize schedules, relocate critical personnel. Assume any pattern can be detected and exploited. That's defensive thinking. It won't end the threat. What do you suggest? Harry looked at his father, then at the assembled commanders, then at the tactical display showing Tempest defenses and the dimensional barriers separating them from Britain. We go on offense. Not a full invasion. We're not ready for that, and it would play into Voldemort's hands. But targeted operations. Hit his infrastructure. Eliminate his key supporters, make it clear that attacking Tempest has consequences. We'd be starting a war. We're already in a war, Dad. We just haven't been fighting it properly. Harry's voice was hard. I'm done waiting for him to come to me. I'm done watching people I care about get hurt because of a prophecy I never asked for. If Voldemort wants a war, I'll give him one. On my terms, at my pace, with my rules of engagement. The room was silent. Then, slowly, Veldora began to laugh.
Now that's more like it!
Finally, a Tempest who thinks like a proper predator. This isn't about being a predator, Harry said. It's about ending this. Quickly, decisively, before more innocent people get caught in the crossfire. The outcome is the same. I approve. Rimuru studied his son for a long moment. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him, because he nodded. All right, we'll develop offensive options. But Harry, you don't go into the field without my explicit approval. This isn't about protecting you, it's about coordinating strategy. We can't win if our most valuable asset is running operations without oversight. Agreed. I'm not trying to be a lone wolf. I just want to stop playing defense. Then we'll stop. Sui, begin developing target packages for Voldemort's support network. Benimaru, coordinate with our allies about potential joint operations. Everyone else, get some rest. We'll reconvene tomorrow with concrete proposals. The meeting broke up. Harry stayed behind, staring at the tactical display. Rimuru appeared beside him. You okay? No. But I'll function. That's not what I asked. Harry turned to face his father. I killed 5 people tonight without hesitation, without remorse. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat, if it meant protecting Kira or anyone else I care about. Is that okay? I honestly don't know anymore. Rimuru was quiet for a moment. I can't tell you what's okay, Harry. That's something you have to decide for yourself. But I can tell you this. The fact that you're asking the question means you haven't lost yourself. Truly broken people don't wonder if they're broken. Kyra said something similar once. She's a smart person. You should listen to her more. Harry smiled despite himself. Yeah, I probably should. He found Kira in the medical district, sitting beside her sleeping parents. She looked up when he entered, and for a moment neither of them spoke. I'm sorry, Harry said finally. This happened because of me. It happened because Voldemort is a monster who targets innocent people. Don't you dare take that onto yourself. But, Nog. Kira stood up and walked toward him, stopping close enough that he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the pain she was carrying. You saved us, Harry. My father would be dead without you. My mother too, probably me as well. That's what matters. Not the reasons they attacked, not the politics or the prophecy. You, being there, fighting for us. I wasn't fast enough. You got hurt. I got scratched. It's already healing. She touched the bandage on her shoulder. And, for the record, watching you fight was the most terrifying and impressive thing I've ever seen. I didn't know people could move like that. I didn't either, honestly. It just happened. Because you were protecting me. The words hung in the air between them. Harry felt something shift. Some barrier that had been standing for years finally starting to crack. I'd do anything to protect you, he said quietly. I think I've known that for a while, but tonight made it real, undeniable. Harry, I'm not saying this to pressure you or make things complicated. I just need you to know. You're not just my friend Kira. You're the person I think about when I imagine a future worth fighting for. And if that's too much, if you don't feel the same way, I understand. I just couldn't not say it anymore. Kira stared at him. Her silver eyes were bright, her ears twitching with emotions he couldn't quite read. Then she stepped forward and kissed him. It was quick, fierce, and tasted slightly of the medical poultices that were everywhere in this district. It was also the best thing Harry had ever experienced. I've been waiting for you to figure that out for 2 years, Kira said when she pulled back. You're really dense sometimes, you know that. So I've been told. Good. Remember it. She punched his shoulder, gently, for once. Now go get some sleep. We have a war to fight and you look like death warmed over. Romantic. I'm Wolfkin. We're practical about these things. But she was smiling. Tomorrow, when everything isn't on fire, we'll talk about what this means. Figure out how to be partners and, whatever we are now, together. Together, Harry agreed. I like the sound of that. He left the medical district with something warm in his chest. Something that had nothing to do with magic or power or war. Hope, maybe, or something even more dangerous, love. The offensive operations began 2 weeks later. Harry led the first strike team personally, against Rimuru's objections, but with his eventual approval once the target was selected. Malfoy Manor. One of Voldemort's key operational bases, home to a family that had been among his most loyal supporters since the beginning. They hit at midnight, dimensional gates opening directly inside the manor's wards. The defenders never had a chance. Harry moved through the corridors like a ghost, taking down Death Eaters with surgical precision. Behind him, Tempest's elite troops secured rooms, captured intelligence, and neutralized threats. The whole operation took less than 15 minutes. They found Lucius Malfoy in his study, trying to destroy documents. Potter. The blonde wizard's voice was contemptuous despite his obvious terror. You've made a grave mistake coming here. The Dark Lord will. The Dark Lord will do nothing. Harry's blade was at Malfoy's throat before he finished speaking. He's lost his base of operations, his records, and one of his most valuable supporters. By the time he hears about this, we'll be gone and you'll be in custody. You think the ministry will hold me? I have connections. You're not going to the ministry. You're going to Tempest. Harry smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. We have much better interrogation facilities. Malfoy's face went pale. You can't. This is kidnapping. International law. You attacked my nation and the people I love. International law stopped protecting you the moment you chose that path. Harry signaled to his team. Take him, and make sure to grab his wife and son too. They might have useful information.
My son is a child.
Your son is 15, same as me. Old enough to take the dark mark, old enough to face consequences. But something in Harry's expression softened slightly. He won't be harmed if he cooperates. That's more than you'd offer our children. They dragged Malfoy away. Harry stayed behind for a moment. Looking around the ruined study, the burning documents, the evidence of a family's complicity in decades of atrocities. Sir, one of his soldiers appeared in the doorway. We've completed the sweep, ready to extract on your order. Any casualties? 3 injuries on our side, none serious. 17 enemy combatants eliminated, 12 captured. An unknown number escaped through emergency portkeys. Good enough. Let's go home. The dimensional gate opened, and Harry stepped through, leaving Malfoy Manor burning behind him. It was a good start. But it was only the beginning. The next 6 months were a blur of operations, negotiations, and preparation. Harry's strike teams hit Death Eater facilities across Britain, safe houses, supply caches, communication nodes. Each attack was surgical, precise, designed to degrade Voldemort's capabilities without provoking the kind of widespread conflict that would play into his hands. Meanwhile, Daphne's network expanded, providing intelligence that made the operations possible. She'd recruited nearly 50 agents across British magical society, from ministry workers to shopkeepers to students still at Hogwarts. They fed information back through the secure journals, painting an increasingly detailed picture of Voldemort's plans. He's getting desperate, Daphne reported during one of their encrypted conversations. The attacks on his infrastructure are hurting more than he expected. He's accelerating his timeline, planning something big, something that will end this one way or another. Any details on what? Not yet, but the ritual components he's gathering suggest something major. Large-scale summoning, possibly. Or dimensional manipulation. Harry felt a chill. He's going to try to break through the barriers. Invade Tempest directly. That's my assessment. He knows he can't win a war of attrition. Your resources are too deep, your allies too committed. His only chance is a decisive strike that takes you out before you can respond. When? Soon. Weeks at most. I'll try to get more details. But be careful, Daphne. You've already taken incredible risks. Don't get yourself killed trying to learn something we might discover another way. That's surprisingly sweet, coming from the terrifying boy who lived. I'm not that terrifying, Harry. You've killed more Death Eaters in the past 6 months than the Order of the Phoenix has in its entire existence. You led a strike team into Malfoy Manor and extracted one of the Dark Lord's most powerful supporters like it was a training exercise. Trust me, you're terrifying. I'm practical. There's a difference. If you say so. There was a pause. Harry, there's something else. Something personal. What? My family knows about my activities. Not the details, but they've figured out I'm working against the Dark Lord. You're not happy. Are you in danger? Not immediately. My father is many things, but he wouldn't harm his own daughter. But they've made it clear that I'm no longer welcome at home if I continue this path. I'm sorry, Daphne. Don't be. I made my choice with open eyes. I'd rather be dissowned and fighting for something I believe in than comfortable and complicit. Her voice strengthened. Besides, I've made new connections. People who care about me for who I am, not what family I belong to. That's worth more than any inheritance. Harry smiled despite the serious topic. You've changed a lot since we first met. So have you. We're both becoming who we need to be. A pause. Take care of yourself, Harry. The next few weeks are going to be intense. You too, Daph. And thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won. We will. The connection closed. Harry sat back, processing everything. Soon. Voldemort was moving soon. They needed to be ready. Harry's 16th birthday was quiet. Just family and close friends gathered in Rimuru's house, trying to carve out a moment of normalcy amid the chaos of war preparations. "You're getting old," Kira teased, handing him a wrapped package. "Next year you'll need a cane. You're 2 months younger than me." Exactly. Practically a child. Very different situation. Harry unwrapped the package and found a pair of combat gloves, high-quality leather reinforced with magical materials, designed to enhance grip while allowing full magical conductivity. "I noticed your old ones were getting worn," Kira said, "and I figured you'd need good equipment for whatever's coming. They're perfect." "Thank you." "You're welcome." She kissed his cheek. "Happy birthday, Harry." The party continued, with increasingly ridiculous gifts from the rest of the attendees. Veldora gave him a scale.
"From my own body, a token of our bond."
That was apparently enchanted to provide protection against fire. Benimaru gave him a training manual written in the Kijin style, which Harry suspected was actually a test disguised as a gift. Rimuru gave him a communication device that would work across dimensional barriers without any detectable magical signature, for when you need to reach me and can't use normal channels. His father explained. It was a good day, a needed day. That night, after everyone had left, Harry stood on the roof of his house and looked out over Tempest. The city glittered with lights, homes, businesses, lives being lived in relative peace. All of it built by Rimuru's vision and protected by Tempest's strength. All of it in danger because of a prophecy Harry had never asked for. Deep thoughts. Kira appeared beside him, her movements silent as always, just thinking about responsibility. All these people depending on us to keep them safe. I like that you include me. You're the one who insisted on being partners. Best decision I ever made." She leaned against him, her warmth comfortable against the night chill. "Whatever happens next, we face it together. No heroic solo missions, no sacrificial plays. Together." Harry agreed. "I promise." They stood like that for a while, watching the stars over Tempest, stealing a moment of peace before the storm. It couldn't last. They both knew that. But for now, it was enough. Voldemort's attack came 3 weeks later. It started with the dimensional barriers screaming. Harry was in the war room when the alarms went off. A cascade of warnings indicating massive magical pressure building at multiple points around Tempest borders. Veldora's analysis came through seconds later. 12 breach points! He's trying to open gates directly into our territory. Can we stop them? The barriers are holding, but he's using power I've never seen before. Sacrificial magic, hundreds of souls feeding the ritual. He's literally burning his own followers to force the gates open. Harry felt sick. Even for Voldemort, that was monstrous. How long until they break through? At this rate, an hour, maybe less. Rimuru appeared. "All units to defensive positions. This is the assault we've been preparing for." "Dad?" "I know." Rimuru's eyes met Harry's. "This is it. Whatever happens next, we face it as a nation. Together." The hour that followed was chaos. 12 gates opened simultaneously, pouring Death Eaters and dark creatures into Tempest territory. The defenders met them with everything they had. Benimaru's flames, Xian's devastating attacks, the coordinated power of Tempest's military operating at peak efficiency. Harry fought at the center of it all. His blade cut through enemies without pause, his hybrid magic burning through shields and countering curses. He moved between breach points, reinforcing wherever the line was weakest, pulling soldiers back from the brink, and pushing attackers into retreat. It wasn't enough. For every Death Eater they killed, 2 more came through the gates. For every dark creature they slew, another took its place. Voldemort was throwing everything he had at them, accepting catastrophic losses in pursuit of breakthrough. And then the real threat appeared. The dimensional fabric tore, open in the center of Tempest's capital district, and Voldemort himself stepped through. He was exactly as the absorbed memories had shown him, pale, serpentine, radiating malevolence like heat from a fire. His red eyes scanned the battlefield until they found Harry. "At last," Voldemort said, his voice carrying over the chaos of battle. "The boy who lived. You've caused me a great deal of trouble, young Potter." "Harry Tempest." Harry stepped forward, his companions falling back to give him space. "And you haven't seen anything yet. So confident, so certain of your strength." Voldemort raised his wand. "Let me show you what real power looks like." The duel began. They fought across the ruined district, magic clashing with magic, curses and counters weaving through the air. Voldemort was powerful, far more powerful than any opponent Harry had faced before. His spells hit like physical blows. His defenses turned aside attacks that should have been lethal. But Harry was faster, younger. Fighting on home ground with everything to protect, their battle drew attention. Other combatants pausing to watch as the prophecy's subjects finally clashed. Harry was aware of Kira somewhere nearby, keeping the other Death Eaters from interfering, buying him space to fight. "You should have stayed hidden," Voldemort hissed, blocking a strike that would have taken his head. "Should have let the old man find you, train you properly, prepare you for our inevitable confrontation. Instead, you chose monsters over your own kind. Monsters who loved me, monsters who raised me to be more than a weapon." Harry pressed the attack, driving Voldemort back step by step. "What did you offer, Tom? Fear and death and empty promises."
Don't call me that name!
"Why not? It's who you are. A scared half-blood who convinced himself that killing enough people would make him special." Harry's blade came within inches of Voldemort's throat. "You're not special. You're just sad." Voldemort's face twisted with rage, and his next attack was wild, uncontrolled. Harry dodged it easily and countered with a blast of hybrid fire that forced the dark wizard back. "This isn't how it was supposed to happen," Voldemort snarled. "You were supposed to be weak, scared, controllable. A child playing at heroism until I crushed you like the insect you are. Sorry to disappoint. You haven't won yet, Potter. I still have resources you can't imagine." Voldemort raised his wand and spoke a word that hurt to hear. The air around them rippled, reality itself bending under the weight of dark magic. And then Harry felt it, a presence at the edge of the battlefield. Something massive, something wrong. A serpent emerged from the shadows, scales black as midnight, eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. It was enormous, 30 feet at least, radiating magical power that matched Voldemort's own. "Nagini, the snake, the Horcrux. My pet has been eager to meet you," Voldemort said, his composure returning. "She's quite hungry." Harry assessed the situation quickly. 2 opponents now, one physical and one magical, coordinating their attacks. The snake moved to flank him, while Voldemort pressed from the front. He couldn't fight both at once, not alone. "Kira." She appeared instantly, blade drawn, already moving toward the snake.
I've got the scaly one!
"You handle the ugly one." "Which one's which?" "Figure it out." Harry grinned despite everything and refocused on Voldemort. The Dark Wizard's next attack was more controlled, more dangerous. A coordinated assault designed to overwhelm Harry's defenses. Harry met it head-on. Their magic clashed, rippling outward in waves of force that shattered windows and cracked stone. Harry pushed deeper, channeling everything he had into the synchronization Veldora had taught him. Sunlight, heartbeat, together. The power surged. For a moment, Harry saw Voldemort's expression shift. Surprise, concern, the first hint of actual fear. The Dark Wizard hadn't expected this. Hadn't prepared for an opponent who could match his magical output. Harry pressed the advantage. His blade found Voldemort's wand arm, cutting deep. The Dark Wizard screamed and stumbled back, blood pouring from the wound. "Impossible? You're just a child?" "I'm Harry Tempest." Harry raised his sword for the killing blow. And you made the mistake of threatening my home." Behind him, he heard Kira cry out. He spun. The snake had gotten past her, coiling to strike at something. Someone, lying on the ground. Kira's father. He'd come to help defend the district, despite his injuries from the first attack. Now he lay in the snake's path, unable to move. Harry didn't think, he moved. The world blurred as he pushed his body beyond its limits, crossing 20 feet in a heartbeat. His blade came down on Nagini's head, just as the snake's fangs descended toward Kira's father. The cut was perfect, clean. The snake's head separated from its body, and something dark and twisted screamed as it died. The piece of Voldemort's soul, finally destroyed. Harry landed and turned back to face the dark wizard. Voldemort was on his knees, clutching his chest, face contorted in agony. The destruction of his Horcrux had hit him hard. "You." Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth. "You killed her. I killed a piece of you." Harry walked toward him, slow and deliberate. "Just like I'm going to kill the rest." "You can't. The prophecy. One of us can only die at the other's hand. I've made myself immortal. You made yourself afraid. So afraid of death that you carved up your soul and scattered it across the world." Harry stopped in front of him. "How many Horcruxes, Tom?" "We've destroyed this one, and I consumed the piece you put in me years ago." "How many are left?" Voldemort's expression flickered. "You don't know. I know enough. And I know that right now you're weaker than you've ever been." Harry raised his blade. "Any last words? You'll never find them all. Even if you kill this body, I'll return. I always return? Maybe. But we'll keep destroying your anchors, keep hunting your followers, keep making sure you never have a moment's peace." Harry's eyes were cold. "Eternity is a long time to be hunted, Tom. Are you sure that's what you want?" For just a moment, Harry saw something in Voldemort's eyes that might have been doubt. Then the dark wizard's expression hardened. "I am Lord Voldemort. I am eternal. I will." Harry's blade took his head. The body collapsed. Silence fell across the battlefield as Death Eaters everywhere felt their master's death through the dark mark. Some fled. Others dropped their wands in surrender. The battle was over. Harry stood over Voldemort's corpse, breathing hard, sword still raised. He didn't feel triumphant. He felt tired. Hollow? Then Kira was there, arms around him, voice in his ear. "You did it. Harry, you did it." "He's not dead." "Not really. The Horcruxes. We'll deal with those later. Right now, you won. You protected everyone." She pulled back, her silver eyes bright with tears. "You amazing, stupid, incredible person." Harry looked around the battlefield, at the fires dying down, the wounded being tended, the citizens emerging from shelter. He looked at his father, appearing through the smoke with relief written across his face. He looked at Veldora, landing nearby with characteristic drama. They were alive. All of them. Despite everything Voldemort had thrown at them. "Yeah," Harry said quietly. "I guess we did." He let Kira support him as his legs finally gave out, exhaustion hitting all at once. The war wasn't over. There were Horcruxes to find, remnants to mop up, wounds to heal. But for now, they had won. And that was enough. Chapter 6c. What Dragons Choose Harry was 17 years old when the Demon Lords came calling. Not with armies or threats. That would have been too simple. They came with invitations, honeyed words, and the kind of political maneuvering that made straightforward violence look refreshing by comparison. The Walpurgis Council requests the presence of Rimuru Tempest and his designated heir. Sui reported, his expression carefully neutral. They wish to discuss matters of mutual interest regarding dimensional stability and inter-realm cooperation. Translation. Harry asked, "They want to evaluate you. Determine whether the human Prince of Tempest is a weakness to be exploited or a factor to be accommodated." Harry leaned back in his chair, processing. The Demon Lords had been a background concern for years. Powerful beings who ruled their own territories, maintained complex alliances and rivalries, and generally viewed Tempest as an upstart nation that had gotten too successful too quickly. Rimuru's own ascension to Demon Lord status had complicated things further. He wasn't like the others, wasn't driven by the same hunger for power or territory. That made him unpredictable, and unpredictable things made ancient beings nervous. "What's the risk level?" Rimuru asked. "Difficult to assess. Walpurgis is traditionally neutral ground. Violence between attendees is forbidden. But accidents have been known to happen, and the rules are flexible when it comes to those who haven't been formally recognized." Meaning Harry. Harry felt the familiar cold focus settling over him. This was what he'd trained for, not just combat, but the political games that determined whether combat became necessary. "I should go," he said. Rimuru's expression flickered. "Harry, Dad, think about it. If I don't attend, they'll see it as weakness. They'll think you're protecting me because I can't handle myself. That perception will color every interaction we have with them going forward." Harry met his father's eyes. "But if I go, face them directly, show them what I'm capable of, we control the narrative. We demonstrate strength from a position of strength." "He's not wrong," Benimaru admitted reluctantly. "The Demon Lords respect power above all else. A show of confidence now could prevent problems later. It could also paint a target on his back. The target's already there, has been since I killed Voldemort." Harry stood, moving to the tactical display. "The question isn't whether they're interested in me. It's whether that interest manifests as respect or aggression. I'd rather shape that outcome than react to it." Rimuru was quiet for a long moment, his slime form rippling with emotions he rarely let show. "You've grown up," he said finally. "I had good teachers. Flattery won't make me less worried about you." "Wasn't trying to. Just stating facts." Harry smiled slightly. "I'll be careful, Dad, and I won't be alone. I assume you're coming too?" "Obviously. I'm not letting you walk into a Demon Lord convention without backup." "Then we go together. Show them a united front." Harry turned to Sui. "When is this council meeting?" 3 days from now. Neutral dimension coordinates provided upon acceptance." "Accept, and start preparing intelligence profiles on every Demon Lord who might attend. I want to know their capabilities, their agendas, their pressure points." Sui nodded and vanished into shadows. Rimuru watched him go, then looked at Harry with an expression that mixed pride and concern in equal measure. "When did you become so comfortable giving orders?" "Around the same time I realized that hesitation gets people killed." Harry's voice softened. "I learned from watching you, Dad. How you balance authority with compassion, how you make hard decisions without losing yourself. I'm just trying to live up to the example." "You're exceeding it. That's what worries me. Should I be less competent? You should be 17 and worried about normal things. Dating, education, what to do with your life. I am worried about those things. I'm also worried about Demon Lords and political stability and making sure Tempest survives long enough for normal worries to matter." Harry shrugged. "It's a lot to balance. But I'd rather have too many concerns than not enough." Rimuru sighed, but there was acceptance in it. 3 days. We'll be ready. The neutral dimension was exactly as unsettling as Harry had expected. Reality here felt thin, stretched, like fabric worn too many times. The space itself was a vast hall of black stone and impossible geometry, lit by flames that cast no shadows and provided no warmth, and it was full of monsters. Not the friendly, kind Harry had grown up with. These were apex predators of the highest order. Beings who had clawed their way to power through centuries of conflict and consumption, who radiated threat the way normal creatures radiated body heat. Harry felt their attention settle on him the moment he stepped through the dimensional gate. "The human child," someone murmured. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, impossible to locate. "How unexpected." "Harry Tempest," Rimuru corrected smoothly. "Prince of Tempest and my designated heir." He speaks with my authority. Authority given by a father to a son. How touching. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall, pale, with eyes that shifted between colors like oil on water. I am Luminous Valentine. I've heard interesting things about you, young prince. Only interesting things. I'll have to try harder. Luminous smiled, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. Confident. Good. The weak don't survive long in our company. Then it's fortunate I'm not weak. Their eyes met. Harry felt the weight of her attention, the ancient power pressing against his senses, testing his defenses. He didn't flinch or look away. After a long moment, Luminous laughed. Oh, I like this one. Rimuru, you've raised something special. I'm aware. More demon lords emerged as the hour progressed. Guy Crimson, whose presence made the air itself feel heavier. Milim Nava, who looked at Harry with curious eyes that held far more intelligence than her childish appearance suggested. Dagruel, massive and silent, watching everything with the patience of mountains. And others, lesser lords, aspiring powers, political creatures who existed in the spaces between the true predators. All of them studying Harry, evaluating, calculating. The formal proceedings began with tedious predictability. Territorial disputes, resource allocation, the endless minutiae of inter-realm politics. Harry listened carefully, building mental models of who allied with whom, who harbored grudges, where the fault lines lay. Then Clayman made his move. A matter of some delicacy, the demon lord announced, his theatrical tone immediately putting Harry on alert. The presence of a human in our midst raises questions of propriety. Rimuru Tempest has been granted standing by his association with Rimuru, Guy Crimson observed. Unless you're challenging that standing, not challenging, questioning. Clayman's smile was oily. We are beings of power, gathered to discuss matters of cosmic significance. Is it appropriate to include one whose entire species exists at our sufferance? Careful. Clayman. Rimuru's voice carried an edge. You're treading close to insult, merely raising a philosophical point. Humans are transient. Their lives measured in decades, their power limited by biological constraints. What can such a creature contribute to deliberations that span centuries? Harry felt the trap closing. Clayman wasn't just insulting him. He was creating a precedent. If the council agreed that humans had no place here, it would undermine Tempest's position for generations. May I respond? Harry asked, addressing the council directly. Silence fell. Even Clayman looked surprised by the direct approach. Guy Crimson waved a hand. Speak. Harry stood, walking to the center of the hall where all eyes could see him. Clayman raises a fair point, he began, and felt surprise ripple through the assembly. Humans are transient. Our lives are short, our individual power limited. By your standards, I'm barely a footnote, a Mayfly addressing beings who remember the formation of continents. He paused, letting the acknowledgement sink in. But there's something you're forgetting. Something that transience teaches us that immortality might obscure. And what's that? Clayman asked, smirking. Urgency. Harry began walking the perimeter of the hall, making eye contact with each demon lord in turn. You have forever. You can afford to wait, to plan in centuries, to let problems solve themselves through the erosion of time. But I don't have that luxury. Every decision I make matters because I don't have infinite chances to get it right. He stopped in front of Clayman, close enough that the demon lord had to look up slightly to meet his eyes. You know what I've accomplished in my 17 years. I've killed a Dark Lord who terrorized an entire dimension for decades. I've led military operations that would make most of your underlings hesitate. I've built intelligence networks, negotiated treaties, and helped govern a nation that's grown faster than any in recorded history. His voice hardened. What have you accomplished with your centuries? Clayman, besides scheming in shadows and insulting your betters. The hall went absolutely silent. Clayman's face twisted with rage. But before he could respond, Milim burst out laughing.
He's got you there.
When's the last time you did anything impressive, Clayman? The humans done more in a decade than you have in a millennium. This is outrageous. It's accurate. Guy Crimson interrupted, sounding amused. The child makes a valid point. Longevity means nothing if it's not accompanied by achievement. And by any measure, Harry Tempest has achieved remarkably. He's still human, still mortal, still standing in front of you without flinching. Harry smiled, and there was nothing friendly in it. You wanted to establish that humans don't belong here. You've established the opposite, because if a 17-year-old human can face down a demon lord and make him look foolish, imagine what I'll do with another decade of experience. Clayman's hand twitched toward something at his belt. Harry caught the motion and responded instantly. Blue-white fire erupted around him, not attacking, just present, a display of power that made several of the lesser lords step back involuntarily. Think carefully, Harry said quietly. Walpurgis rules forbid violence, but they also forbid provocation. You've spent the last 5 minutes insulting me, my father, and my entire species. If you reach for that weapon, no one here will blame me for defending myself. The moment stretched. Clayman's eyes darted around the hall, looking for support, finding none. Even his usual allies were watching with expressions that ranged from neutral to contemptuous. Finally, the demon lord lowered his hand. This isn't over, he snarled. No, Harry agreed. It's not. He let the fire die and walked back to his position beside Rimuru. The council resumed as if nothing had happened, but the dynamic had shifted. When Harry spoke, the other lords listened. When he made observations, they were treated with respect. He had passed the first test. But Clayman's humiliated expression promised that more tests were coming. The aftermath of Walpurgis played out over the following months. Clayman, predictably, began building a coalition against Tempest. He recruited ambitious lords who resented Rimuru's rapid rise, made alliances with external powers who feared the monster nation's growing influence, and laid the groundwork for a confrontation that was clearly intended to, accidentally, eliminate Harry in the process. Harry watched it happen with something approaching anticipation. "You're enjoying this," Kira accused him one evening. "You're actually looking forward to whatever Clayman's planning." Not enjoying, anticipating. Harry studied the intelligence reports spread across his desk. "There's a difference. I's there. Because you've got that look you get before fights. The focused one. I've got that look because I finally understand what we're dealing with. Clayman's not subtle. He's building toward a confrontation, and he's doing it in ways that leave clear evidence. When he makes his move, we'll be ready, and his allies will see exactly how that works out for him. And if his move is too strong, if he's gathered enough power to actually threaten us." Harry leaned back in his chair, meeting Kira's eyes. "Then we break him so thoroughly that no one ever makes the same mistake again." Kira studied him for a long moment. "You've changed since Walpurgis. Become more certain. I've become clearer about what I'm willing to do. There's a difference." Harry sighed, some of the intensity draining from his expression. "I spent years trying to balance being effective with being good. Trying to make sure I didn't become a monster in the process of fighting monsters. But the demon lords showed me something important." "What?" "That at their level, the distinction doesn't matter. What matters is power and will, the ability to act and the conviction to follow through. You can be good or evil, gentle or cruel. It doesn't change the fundamental equation." He shook his head. "I'm not going to become cruel. But I'm done apologizing for being powerful. Done pretending I'm less than I am to make others comfortable. Harry, I'm still me, Kira. Still the person who reads casualty lists because every name matters. Still the person who helps refugees because it's right. But I'm also the person who killed 5 Death Eaters in 8 seconds and would do it again without hesitation. Both things are true. I'm done pretending they're contradictory. Kira crossed the room and took his hands. I'm not worried about who you're becoming. I'm worried about what it's costing you to become it. Everything has costs. This is just the price of being effective in a world that doesn't care about fairness. Harry squeezed her hands. But I'm not paying it alone. That's what makes the difference. You, Dad, Veldora, everyone, you keep me grounded. Remind me why the effectiveness matters. That's a lot of responsibility to put on us. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just keep letting us help. She leaned forward and kissed his forehead. Whatever's coming, we face it together. That's the deal. I remember. Good. Now put away the intelligence reports and come to bed. You've been staring at them for 6 hours and your eyes are doing that twitchy thing. My eyes don't twitch. They absolutely twitch. It's very unattractive. You love me anyway. Unfortunately. But she was smiling as she said it. Clayman's move came 3 months later. The attack began at midnight. Coordinated strikes on Tempest's border outposts, diversionary assaults designed to draw defenders out of position, and a core thrust aimed directly at the capital district. But they weren't facing the Tempest of 5 years ago. They were facing a nation that had survived Voldemort's invasion and learned from it. All units to defensive positions, Rimuru commanded. His voice calm despite the chaos erupting across the tactical displays. Pattern Delta. Let them think they're making progress, then close the trap. Harry watched from the command center, tracking the enemy movements with practiced eyes. Clayman himself. Not detected yet. Either he's holding back or Hayes not here. Harry pointed to a section of the display. This whole attack is a feint. Look at the resource allocation. They're not committing enough forces for a real invasion. They're trying to draw us out, get us to overextend. For what purpose? To create an opening. Harry's mind raced through possibilities. He's not trying to conquer Tempest. He's trying to isolate a target, someone specific. You. Probably, but not necessarily. Harry turned to Sui. Where are the other high-value targets right now? Dad, Veldora, Shion, Benimaru. Where is everyone? Lord Rimuru is here. Veldora is responding to the southern incursion. Benimaru and Shion are. Sui stopped mid-sentence, his expression shifting. Report, Rimuru demanded. Shion's squad just went dark. Last known position was the Eastern Trade District. Harry felt ice form in his stomach. That's where Daphne's new apartment is. Everything clicked into place. Clayman wasn't after Harry. He was after Harry's known associates. People whose deaths would hurt without directly triggering Tempest's full retaliation. I'm going, Harry said, already moving toward the door. Harry, wait. There's no time. Sui, get me a gate to Shion's last position. Dad, handle the main assault. I'll extract our people and be back before you finish mopping up. He didn't wait for approval. Couldn't afford to. The dimensional gate opened, and Harry plunged through into chaos. The Eastern Trade District was on fire. Not the controlled burns of normal combat. This was deliberate destruction, meant to cause panic and confusion. Buildings collapsed. Civilians screamed, and somewhere in the inferno, people Harry cared about were in danger. Harry moved through the flames without slowing, his hybrid magic forming a shield that turned aside heat and debris. He extended his senses, searching for familiar signatures. There. Shion's power. Flickering but present. And another. Daphne's distinctive magical signature, weaker but still alive. He found them in the ruins of what had been a marketplace. Shion was down, her body covered in wounds that would have killed anyone less durable. Daphne crouched beside her, wand raised, facing 3 figures in dark robes who radiated power far beyond normal opponents. Demon Lord subordinates. Elite soldiers from Clayman's inner circle. Step away from the human, one of them commanded. Our master wants her alive. You can die quickly or slowly. Your choice. Daphne's response was a curse that forced the speaker to dodge. Come and get her yourself, you pathetic errand boy. The subordinate's face twisted with rage. He raised his hand. Dark energy gathering. Harry's blade took his arm off at the elbow. The other two spun, weapons appearing, but Harry was already among them. His combat magic blazed as he moved through forms that Benimaru had drilled into him until they were more instinct than thought. 8 seconds, 2 more down. Harry stood over their bodies, breathing hard, scanning for additional threats. "Harry!" Daphne's voice was rough with relief. "How did you? Doesn't matter. Can you move?" "Yes, but Shion. I'll carry her. We need to get out of here before reinforcements arrive." Harry knelt beside the fallen ogre, assessing her injuries. Severe but survivable, assuming they got her to medical care soon. He'd just gathered Shion in his arms when the fourth subordinate appeared. This one was different. Stronger, faster, radiating power that made the others look like children. A true elite, held in reserve for exactly this moment. "Impressive," the creature said, circling slowly. "Lord Clayman said you were dangerous. Believe him now." "I believe you killed 3 of my comrades. That requires a response." The creature smiled, showing teeth that were too numerous and too sharp. "I am Yamza, Lord Clayman's right hand, and I'm going to enjoy breaking you." He attacked. The fight was nothing like the brief executions Harry had just performed. Yamza was fast, skilled, and strong enough that even Harry's enhanced strikes barely seemed to register. They traded blows across the burning marketplace, each exchange forcing Harry to push harder just to survive. "You're good," Yamza admitted, blocking a strike that would have decapitated him. "Better than I expected. But you're tired, wounded, protecting deadweight. How long can you last?" Harry didn't waste breath on response. He was calculating, analyzing, looking for the opening that had to exist somewhere there. A slight hesitation when Yamza shifted right. An old injury. Maybe, or just a habit that left him vulnerable. Harry feinted left, drew the counter he expected, and drove his blade through Yamza's chest. The creature stared at him with something like surprise. "How?" "I watched your feet," Harry said quietly. "You favor your right side. Leaves a gap in your defense when you pivot. Lord Clayman will. Lord Clayman will learn what happens when you threaten my people." He withdrew his blade, and Yamza collapsed. Harry turned back to Daphne and Shion, exhaustion hitting him all at once. "No, we leave." The aftermath of Clayman's assault was predictable in some ways, surprising in others. The military operation had failed completely. Tempest defenses held, the trap closed as planned, and the attacking forces were either destroyed or captured. Clayman himself had remained conspicuously absent from the fighting, maintaining deniability that fooled absolutely no one. What was surprising was the reaction from the other demon lords. "Clayman has overstepped," Guy Crimson announced at an emergency Walpurgis session. "Attacking Tempest directly violates the understanding that keeps our realms from constant warfare. There must be consequences. He claims the attack was undertaken by rogue elements without his authorization." Luminous observed, and we all know that's convenient fiction. Millam's voice was cold, entirely unlike her usual cheerful tone. "Rimuru is my friend. Clayman hurt my friend's people. I want to know what we're going to do about it." Harry watched the debate unfold, keeping his expression neutral despite the satisfaction building in his chest. This was exactly what he'd hoped for. Clayman's aggression turning the other lords against him, isolating the schemer from potential allies. "The evidence is clear," Harry said when prompted to speak. Yamza was Clayman's most trusted subordinate. His presence at the attack site isn't coincidence. It's proof of direct involvement. The only question is what response is proportionate. And what response would you consider proportionate? Guy asked, seeming genuinely curious. Harry met the ancient demon lord's eyes. Traditionally, an attack on sovereign territory is answered with war. But I don't think Tempest wants a prolonged conflict. It would distract from our development and benefit no one. Then what do you propose? Single combat. Claim an attack to prove I was a weakness that could be exploited. Let him prove it personally. Harry's voice hardened. He faces me, 1-1, under Walpurgis witness. If he wins, Tempest accepts his superiority. If I win, he forfeits his territory and titles. No armies, no subordinates, no political games. Just strength against strength. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Single combat was traditional among demon lords, a way to settle disputes without devastating wars. But for a human to invoke it against a lord, Luminous said, perhaps too bold. Clayman is ancient and powerful, whatever his other failings, and I killed his strongest subordinate while wounded and protecting civilians. Harry smiled without warmth. I'm not concerned about the outcome. The question is whether Clayman has the courage to accept. All eyes turned to the schemer, whose face had gone pale. This is absurd. I don't answer challenges from humans. You don't get to hide behind species now, Malim interrupted. You attacked him and his people. He's offered you a way out that doesn't involve all of us crushing you. I'd take it if I were you. The pressure in the room shifted, focused on Clayman like a vice. He looked around for support and found none. Fine, he spat. I accept. 1 week from now at neutral ground we settle this. Agreed? Harry nodded to the assembly. Thank you for your time. He turned and walked out, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. 1 week. Then it would be over. The 7 days before the duel passed in a blur of preparation. Harry trained with renewed intensity, focusing on techniques specifically designed for fighting beings of demon lord caliber. Veldora pushed him harder than ever, forcing adaptations and improvements that left Harry exhausted but sharper. Clayman isn't weak, the dragon warned during one session. He's ancient, cunning, and has survived challenges from beings far more impressive than you. Don't underestimate him. I'm not. That's why I'm preparing. Harry blocked a strike that would have shattered normal bones. But I've beaten powerful enemies before. Voldemort was a wizard, powerful by human standards, pathetic by ours. Clayman is a true demon lord, even if a weak one by our measure. The gap between him and your previous opponents is immense. Then I'll bridge the gap. Harry pushed back, driving Veldora onto the defensive for a brief moment. I've done it before. I'll do it again. That confidence will either save you or kill you. Veldora's expression was unreadable. I suppose we'll find out which. The night before the duel, Kira found Harry on the roof of his house. You're not sleeping, she observed. Can't? Too much to think about. Nervous. Terrified. Harry laughed softly. I've been projecting confidence all week, but the truth is I don't know if I can win. Clayman's had centuries to develop techniques I've never seen. He knows things about magic and combat that I can't even imagine. Then why did you challenge him? Because it was the best option. Harry looked at her, his expression open in a way it rarely was. If I hadn't, he would have kept pushing. Testing our defenses, threatening our people, looking for weaknesses to exploit. The only way to stop that cycle is to end him, and this was the cleanest way to do it. And if you lose? Then I die, and you all figure out how to handle the aftermath. Harry reached out and took her hand. But I'm not planning to lose. Neither am I. Kira squeezed his hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, Harry, I want you to know something. What? I don't regret any of it. The danger, the fear, the constant worry that you're going to do something reckless and get yourself killed. She met his eyes. Being with you, loving you, building a life alongside you, it's been worth every moment of terror. Harry felt something tight in his chest loosen. I love you too, he said, more than I know how to express. Then express it by winning tomorrow. Come back to me, Harry. That's all I ask. I will. I promise. They sat together until dawn, watching the stars fade into morning light. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The dueling ground was a shattered dimension. remnants of a world destroyed in some ancient conflict, repurposed as neutral territory for exactly this kind of confrontation. The demon lords gathered as witnesses, their presence creating a weight of attention that made the air itself feel heavier. At the center of the space, Harry and Clayman faced each other across 100 feet of broken stone. "Any last words before I destroy you?" Clayman asked, his confidence seemingly restored. "Just one question." Harry rolled his shoulders, loosening muscles that were tight with anticipation. "Did you really think attacking my friends would break me? Or were you just too stupid to realize it would make me stronger?" Clayman's face twisted with rage. "You arrogant little—" Guy Crimson's voice cut through the tension. "The duel begins. Now." Clayman attacked. He was fast, faster than Harry expected, his ancient body moving with power that belied his usual scheming demeanor. Dark magic crackled around him as he closed the distance, claws extended to tear Harry apart. Harry met him head-on. Their first exchange was brutal, a clash of power that sent shockwaves across the shattered landscape. Harry's blade caught Clayman's claws, hybrid fire flaring against dark magic, neither giving ground. "You're strong," Clayman admitted, pressing harder. "Stronger than I thought. But it won't save you." "We'll see." They broke apart and came together again, trading strikes and counters in patterns too fast for normal eyes to follow. Harry felt his old injuries protesting, felt exhaustion already building from the sustained output of his combined magical systems. But Clayman was struggling too. The Demon Lord had expected an easy victory, and Harry's resistance was wearing on him psychologically as much as physically. "Why won't you die?" Clayman snarled after another failed attack. "Because I have people waiting for me." Harry parried a thrust and countered with a cut that opened a gash across Clayman's chest. "Because I refuse to let someone like you win. Someone like me."
You don't know anything about me.
"I know enough. You scheme instead of act. You manipulate instead of lead. You've spent centuries building power without ever risking yourself. And now you don't know how to fight someone who isn't afraid of you." Harry pressed forward, driving Clayman back step by step. "You're a coward. Clayman, that's all you've ever been."
Silency.
Clayman's power exploded outward in a wave of dark energy that forced Harry to throw up every defense he had. The pressure was immense, bearing down on him with the weight of centuries of accumulated strength. For a moment, Harry thought he might break. Then he remembered Kira's face waiting for him to come home, Rimuru's pride earned through years of growth, Veldora's lessons, drilled into him until they were more instinct than thought. Everyone who had helped him become what he was, everyone counting on him to win. He couldn't let them down. Harry reached deep inside himself, past the wizard magic and the monster energy, past the carefully cultivated synchronization. He reached for something more fundamental, the core of will that had kept him fighting since he was a child, the absolute refusal to give up no matter the odds. And he found it. Power exploded outward from his body, matching Clayman's pressure, then exceeding it. Blue, white fire wrapped around him like armor, lifting him off the ground, transforming him into something more than human. "Impossible," Clayman breathed. "You're just a human. I'm Harry Tempest." Harry's voice echoed with power that didn't quite fit in normal space. "Prince of Tempest, son of Rimuru, nephew of the Storm Dragon. I've killed dark lords and broken curses and faced down ancient evils since before I could walk." He raised his hand, and all that power focused into a single point. "And I am done with you." The strike hit Clayman like divine judgment. His defenses shattered. His body crumpled. His power, centuries of accumulated strength, scattered like leaves in a hurricane. When the light faded, Harry stood over Clayman's broken form, breathing hard, his transformation already fading. "Yield," he said quietly. "It's over." Clayman stared up at him with eyes full of disbelief and hatred. For a moment, Harry thought he might refuse. might force Harry to kill him just to preserve his pride. Then the hatred crumbled into something that might have been despair. "I yield," Clayman whispered. The demon lords erupted in noise. Exclamations of surprise, murmurs of evaluation, even scattered applause from those who had enjoyed the spectacle. But Harry barely heard any of it. He turned away from his defeated enemy and walked toward where his family waited. Rimuru caught him when his legs finally gave out. "I've got you," his father said.
I've got you? Is it over?
"The duel is. The rest." Rimuru's voice was soft. "We'll figure out together." Harry closed his eyes and let himself rest. The aftermath of the duel reshaped the political landscape of the Demon Lord realms. Clayman was stripped of his title and territories, his remaining forces absorbed by neighboring lords or disbanded entirely. The precedent set by Harry's victory, a human defeating a demon lord in single combat, sent shockwaves through every power structure that had assumed species-determined capability. More importantly, Tempest's position was secured. No one would challenge them lightly after watching their prince dismantle an ancient lord through sheer determination and skill. Harry spent 2 weeks recovering from the strain of his transformation. The power he'd accessed during the final moments of the fight had pushed his body past its normal limits, and the price was exhaustion that sleep alone couldn't cure. Kira stayed with him through most of it, alternating between nursing and scolding. "You promised to come back," she said during one of his more lucid periods. "You didn't say anything about almost dying in the process." "I didn't almost die. Your heart stopped twice during the recovery." "That's technically dying, I suppose." "Technically dying is still dying, you impossible person." But she was holding his hand, her grip fierce. "Don't ever do that to me again." "I'll try not to." "Not good enough." "Promise me." Harry looked at her, really looked. Seeing the fear beneath her anger, the love beneath her frustration. She'd been carrying this weight for years, watching him throw himself into danger again and again, trusting him to come back. "I promise," he said quietly. "No more unnecessary risks. No more fighting alone when I don't have to. I'll be smarter, more careful, more willing to let others help. That's all I ask." "It's a lot to ask." "Then it's a good thing I'm worth it." She leaned down and kissed him, gentle despite her evident emotion. "I love you, Harry. Even when you're being an idiot, I love you too. Even when you're being terrifying. I'm always terrifying. It's part of my charm." Full recovery took a month. When Harry was finally back on his feet, moving without assistance, thinking clearly again, he found a world that had changed in subtle but important ways. Tempest was thriving, its security assured by the respect Harry's victory had earned. Trade flourished, population grew, and the nation his father had built continued to expand in ways that seemed almost magical. The wizarding world was rebuilding, freed at last from Voldemort's shadow. Daphne had become a liaison between the two realms, using her unique position to facilitate cooperation and understanding. Old prejudices were slowly giving way to new possibilities. And Harry himself. Harry was trying to figure out what came next. You could take a formal position in the government, Rimuru suggested during one of their conversations. Ambassador, counselor, military commander, whatever suits you, maybe eventually. But right now, I think I need something simpler. Simpler how? Harry looked out the window at the city he'd helped protect, the home he'd nearly died for. I've spent my whole life preparing for crises. Training, fighting, planning for the next threat. But the threats are handled now, at least the immediate ones. And I don't know who I am without them. That's a normal thing to struggle with. Most people don't face it until much later in life, but the questions are the same. How did you handle it? When you first came to this world, figured out who you wanted to be, Rimuru was quiet for a moment. I focused on what I could build rather than what I had to fight. Tempest started as a way to protect the goblins who had helped me, but it became something more. a place where anyone could belong, regardless of what they were. That purpose gave me direction when everything else was uncertain. So I need to find my own purpose. You need to let yourself discover it. Not force it, not plan it, just live. Experience things. See what matters to you when the pressure's off. Harry nodded slowly. Kira keeps saying something similar. That I need to learn how to live, not just survive. She's wise. You should listen to her. I'm trying. Harry smiled slightly. It's harder than fighting honestly. Most worthwhile things are. A year passed. Harry spent it exploring possibilities, trying on different roles to see what fit. He taught combat classes at Tempest's military academy, finding unexpected satisfaction in watching students improve. He worked with Daphne's diplomatic initiatives, bridging worlds that had been separate for too long. He traveled, sometimes alone and sometimes with Kira, seeing parts of reality he'd never had time to notice before. And slowly, gradually, he started to understand what his father had meant. The purpose wasn't something he found, it was something he built. Every connection he made, every life he touched, every small act of kindness or competence or care, they accumulated into something larger than any single achievement, a legacy that had nothing to do with killing Dark Lords or defeating Demon Lords. On his 18th birthday, Harry stood on the balcony of his home and watched the sun set over Tempest. Kira stood beside him, her hand in his, her presence as natural as breathing. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "That I'm happy." Harry squeezed her hand. "Really, genuinely happy. Not just relieved or satisfied or content. Actually happy. Is that surprising?" "A little. I spent so long focused on survival that I forgot happiness was even an option." He turned to look at her. "Thank you for being patient with me while I figured that out. Thank me by staying happy, that's all I want. I'll try. I'll keep trying for as long as we have. Together. Always together." They watched the sunset fade into stars, the future stretching out before them like an unwritten story. Harry didn't know what that story would contain. More challenges, certainly. More growth, more pain, more joy. The world was full of possibilities, and he was finally ready to explore them. Not as a weapon or a prophecy's pawn. Not as a crisis, hardened soldier or a reluctant hero. Just as himself, Harry Tempest. Son, partner, friend, leader, a human raised by monsters, who had learned to be something more than either. Whatever came next, he would face it the same way he'd faced everything else. With determination, with love, and with the unshakable knowledge that he was never truly alone. The Storm Dragon's nephew, the Slime Lord's son, a prince of monsters and a bridge between worlds. He was exactly who he'd chosen to become. And that was enough.